Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Happy holidays to everybody. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Today is December 21st. The time is now 4:01, and I'm going to call our meeting to order. Welcome to the December 21st meeting of the Children's Services Council of Leon County. There are multiple opportunities to comment on the agenda. So for those of you that are our guests, please make sure you get a copy of the agenda and note where there are opportunities for comment. And if you would like to make a comment, please see the lovely Ms. Clay right at the very end. Fill out one of those cards, and then we will call on you in order for you to give your comments throughout the meeting. There are a lot of speakers here today, and we welcome you. We will ask that when it's time for comments, we do a 3-minute timer for our speakers. So we're going to please ask everybody to please adhere to the 3-minute timer. We will try to give you a little notification. I won't just straight up cut you off, but I will let you know, hey, you have about 30 minutes remaining. So I just wanted to 30 seconds. God bless you. 30 seconds remaining, but that's the reminder so that you can start, wrapping up your thoughts. All right. So thank you very much for that. And then for our wonderful council members, when it's time for, when you want to be acknowledged, please don't forget to raise your little tent. And that gives me a visual cue that you would like to be recognized. All right, with that, we are going to go ahead and get started. Ms. Clay, will you please do the roll call for me?
Judge Miller?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien? Mr. Jones?
Good.
Mr. Hannah?
Present.
Commissioner Cummings?
Present.
Mr. Mitchell? Mr. Watt?
Here.
Dr. Glenn?
Here.
Have a quorum.
All right, we have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We do have a couple of council members that are missing, but I do think they're on their way, so hopefully they'll be here in just a moment. All right, with that, it is time for us to review the agenda. So council members, you all did receive a copy of the revised agenda that was sent out. It was also posted on our website for those of you that are in the room.
Approval.
All right, we have an approval. Do I hear a second to approve the agenda? All right, we have a second by Judge Miller. And if everybody's in consensus, the consent agenda or the agenda will be approved. All right, I don't see any oppositions. All right, so the agenda is approved. Thank you very much. All right, it is now time for general public comment. Ms. Clay, do we have any cards?
Yes.
All right, please.
Public comments, Ms. Corey Milson.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Corey Melton, and today I'm here actually representing the Talent Development Council. That includes Office of Economic Vitality, Lively Technical College, Tallahassee Community College, soon to be State College, Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce, and Career Source Capital Region. And in your packet, I think today, you have a report that came back to you from our Worlds of Work event that we held in October. And we are just so thankful for your participation as a partner in that event. And so we wanted to thank you for that. And to let you know that the partners I just named, between cash and in-kind donations, also donated about $20,000 each to that event. And what I'm most excited about is something that's coming up on your agenda a little bit later, which is the summer internship program that will really be an extension of the Worlds of Work. So it's taking it from being just that 2-day event, which was a great one, and really bringing the students into the workplace. And so the Talent Development Council is going to be a partner in that program with, hopefully when it passes, so that we can help the employers be a better place for the students to have a work-based learning experience. So our role will be to help recruit some of those employers, give them some training, because we want it to be a great experience for the students and the workplace so that they will want to continue this year after year. So just wanted to bring that up. And again, thank you for your partnership in the Worlds of Work. And we look forward to seeing Worlds of Work 2.0.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Thank you. Ms. Clay, do we have any other public comments?
Yes, public comment, Ms. Donna Cotterell.
Ms. Cotterell. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I want to say thank you because we did get funded in DABA Incorporated through the last round of funding, but I'm actually here representing Youth Entrepreneur Program, YEP, and the Helping Entrepreneurs Leverage Prosperity Help. I help both of them write their grants, and I'm here to answer any questions if you have any questions regarding their application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for participating. All right, and let the record show that our council member, no worries, Mr. Bryant has has joined us. Thank you. Any other public comments?
Yes, I have public comment from Q.
Good afternoon, evening weather. Sorry for my attire. I'm helping with church event as well. So I am here representing Youth Entrepreneur Program in Florida, which Ms. Donna also helped actually write the grant for us. And so just a little bit of background. I am a positive youth development teacher. I was teaching for 8 years. And so I saw that there was a need for students that would come to myself and my husband and ask about how can I start my business? Or we have 2 sons that are 9 and they both started their business. They both have a crop charm business. They have a few food trucks, and they also have their own tea businesses as well as their lemonade business. So they see our sons out working. I'm like, how do we get them going? And so we know that now with the world and how the economy is like shifting, a lot of people are going trade school or going entrepreneurship. And so we found that if we could get a program started that can teach these young individuals from middle school up until high school and college, that they'll be able to have that revenue and have that support system behind them as well. We also have a concentration in positive development as well as mental health, because we know that's a part of what's going on now with the world. And so having that mental health aspect of it as well as family affirmations, because some people, we have those entryways where we can get in, but then do we have the support system to make us sustain? And so that's what we're going to do, is get out in the community, have these different community partners that'll be able to come in, talk about financial literacy, talk about what are your things, what's going on internally, mentally, that can also help you to succeed or fail. But we want to make sure that we have that success rate versus that failure rate. So I'm here. Ms. Donna is here also to help answer any questions. I do have to step out to get back to church to finish up with our program for tonight, but I do want to thank you and just introduce myself to everyone in the room.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your participation today.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ms. Clark.
Public comment, Mr. Stanley Sim Senior.
Let the church say amen,
Amen.
amen again. I just wanted to basically come in and thank each and every one of you for affording us this opportunity. And as for the proposal of site, I want to say I really heard something from Kelly, and she's not here tonight. It's the capacity to tell a story. That's what she just did there. Was to tell a story. And I also want to and we all have our story, but what is so unique about my proposal that I left out of my story that is applicable to all races. We really have to teach all of our children entrepreneurship. And the road to entrepreneurship is not one size fit all, because we all have unique stories. So I'm here tonight to say thank you. And I'm also here tonight to also ask that a part of your criteria be not so that you don't penalize a person for not the ability to tell their story. But when we know that there are strong individuals in our community, such as you, who are doing the work but just don't know how to tell that story, we need some for them. Again, thank you for your work. Thank you for your time for this. I'm going to expound a little bit more later as a reference to my proposal, because I'm learning how to tell my story. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your comment. Any other comments?
There's no more public comment.
No more public comments. All right. Thank you all so very much. And I really appreciate the level of engagement that we have from the audience today. All right. With that, it is now time for us to review our consent agenda. So the consent agenda was sent out prior to the meeting. All right. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Watts. So if we don't have any opposition, we will go ahead and approve.
I don't have any opposition, but I just want to make a comment,
Yes,
ask a question. Looking at the minutes, I guess to the executive director, at our last meeting 2 months ago, we had a group come in wanting emergency funding. And we agreed to look at it on an expedited basis with some criteria for funding it. And I kept looking for the criteria of the bylaw so that we could, not just for that entity, but for any other one. So I'd just like to know the status.
So we're still working on that. We're doing some additional research. Councilmember Cummings, just as a quick update, we talked with other CSCs. They do not have emergency funding categories for providers, but rather emergency or contingency funding for themselves to be able to use that money in the case of emergency. That being said, with the direction of looking at SIPs, we are looking at how we can present possibly something to you in that SIPs kind of category. Unfortunately, that took a little bit of a backseat to the other procurements that we knew we needed you to approve today. But it is on my board, on my list, and hopefully not January, but in March at your business meeting, we should have something for you to review.
Thank you. And I might, if I could just follow up, Madam Chair, and I appreciate that comment from our executive director, but I think, you know, we can set our own criteria. Other service councils don't have it. We got a general counsel here that can help us. So I think we can take the lead in that respect, you know. So thank you for that, for the follow-up.
Thank you. So I'm hearing a request that you would like for the staff to come up with a representation more expeditiously, without.
Not necessarily, we did it 2 months ago, and they're working on it, so that's fine, but I just don't want us to be stymied by that other ones don't. You can take the lead and do it, and you know, let them follow.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
is it your intent, her comments that we would come up with some policy amendment that would permit that? Is that what you?
Absolutely, yes, that's what we discussed 2 months ago. Yes, sir.
And is that what you want them to bring us back, process by which that occurs?
Right, yep, that's what we voted for 2 months ago, so, and they're working on it, but absolutely.
And it's my understanding that is what they're in the process of doing. They just haven't had a chance to.
Yeah,
You're right.
could not have that ready.
I understand.
But I got it.
And I know, to me, expedited is a week, or maybe 2, you know, so I just wanted to set an update on it.
Thank you very much for that. So with that, I would still like for us to get consent on the agenda. And would like for a note to be made, Ms. Cummings, that's documented, that you wanted to make sure that they were working on that, and that was something we addressed, okay?
Right, yeah.
All right, so we would need to make consensus that we will approve the consent agenda, but adding the fact that, correct, all right, that the staff is working on following up on the recommendation that was made at the October. Okay. Any disagreement with that recommendation from any council members?
I accept that amendment.
All right, sounds good. All right, then do we have any dissent with that? Everybody's in agreement? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. All right, then we will move forward with that. So thank you all. Thank you so very much, Commissioner Cummings, for bringing that forward. And we will continue on with our agenda. Please let the record show that we also have our additional council member, Mr. Mitchell, who's joined us. All right, we are now on agenda item number 6 for the general counsel's update. And at this point, we're going to get an update on the FL class participation. I'm going to turn it over to our council member, our councilman, Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, you have before you resolution number 2023-05, which is entitled a resolution of the Children's Services Council of Leon County regarding engagement for the Florida Cooperative Liquid Assets Security System, Florida class, for investment of CSC Leon funds until such funds are needed for expenditure. Approving engagement in Florida class and related documentation, including an instrument of adoption of that certificate of local agreement for Florida class, and or such other documentation.
I'm sorry. Page 26,
Yes,
for those of you that are flipping through, because I'm flipping through to find it also. Page 26. I apologize. All right, thank you.
And or such other documentation that may be required by Florida class. Approving the deposit of CSC Leon funds to Florida class for such purpose, ratifying and confirming actions taken by CSC Leon staff and furtherance thereof, and providing effective. Members may recall that earlier this year, the Governing Council adopted a resolution which authorized staff to begin the process of engaging Florida class to handle investment of CSC Beyond funds until such time as those funds were needed. It may be in a given situation that keeping funds in a simple bank account won't result in the same rate of return that you might be able to achieve if those funds are instead invested with in this case, an investment pool. Florida Class is essentially a public body. It's created by an interlocal agreement between Florida local governments as well as Florida constitutional officers. It is tasked with and designed solely to do just this: receive funds from public entities, invest those funds in a safe and reliable manner, make sure that those funds are liquid so that CSC in this case can access them when they need their funds. But at the same time, the objective is to enjoy a rate of return on those funds that you might not otherwise be able to achieve when it's just held in. That resolution adopted earlier this year directed staff to go forward and take such steps as are necessary to apply and register the Florida Class, but to bring back before the full governing council additional instruments so as to approve the formal engagement of Florida Class. At this point, it's my understanding, talking with staff, that we are ready to begin that investment and that relationship with Florida Class. However, this resolution formalizes that. It gives approval of the governing council and also authorizes the staff and the chair to execute any other documents that Florida Class may need. I've spoken with both the general counsel for Florida Class and the representative who is working with us to see what else they might need. And they've assured me that they think they have everything so far with adoption of this resolution in order to proceed. There is an interlocal agreement that I believe may be available to each council member, or certainly on file here. It kind of goes through the background of Florida Class, tells you a bit more what it is and what its service mission is. And with that, I'm happy to answer your questions about the resolution.
Right, thank you very much for reviewing the resolution. I hope the council members remember we did have a presentation several months ago. I don't remember what month it was about the FL Class. So now the resolution is in front of us today. So with that, and thank you for that review, Mr. Rowe. Thank you. I will entertain a motion and a second to approve the resolution, and then we can move into discussion. So. All right, so we have a motion by Mr. O'Brien. We have a second by Mr. Jones. We are now open for discussion. So do we have any questions or comments with regard to the resolution or anything related to FL Class from any of the council members? It's coming.
Yes, procedurally, just based on Mr. Rowe's presentation and reading the resolution, then the council staff will make application, is what I understand. And then it will come back to the body, I guess, in conjunction with the budget to determine what amount would be invested or if there's any to be invested. Is that correct?
So the application's already been done.
Yes, so
it's already been done.
yes, the
Okay.
first resolution allowed us to go forth and make the application.
Okay.
So we have we've done that. It is in your packet. And through that application, we created 4 funds, 4 accounts with FL Class, so our contingency fund and our catastrophe fund, which are in line with the reserves policy that this council passed via resolution, and then a program fund, which would hold program monies until such time as those monies are distributed, and then a general fund, because I thought it was a good idea just to have one more fund for money that may be returned that's not used. We can put it in there and let it go. So with the approval of this resolution, we will then go with the Finance and Budget Committee, bring that committee together, look at the current balances we have, and then make a determination on how those deposits will be made.
Okay, so the accounts have been established, but we just don't have the,
Right.
is what I'm, okay, that was my question pretty much. Okay,
Thank you.
thank
So
you.
this resolution allows us to go forward and do that.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hannah.
2 things. One, I would love to hear our treasurer's input on this issue. So respect his opinion on these lines, financial investments. And is there someone, I may have missed it, that is going to be advising us along the way of, is it a part of the contract with FO Class that they would then advise us as to when to move money and when not to move money and things along those lines?
Have you answered that question?
Well, so what I will say is the whole purpose and Treasurer Mitchell will definitely jump in because he knows about this as well. The whole purpose of this being formed is so that we as an entity don't have to move money when it is put in here. They are doing that investing for us. It is liquid within 24 hours and they serve in that capacity of informing us on
Right, I get it.
when
Like,
money
that's-
moves into
that part I
various
understand, but I assume that we will hold some money in a local bank in
Yes.
addition to FL class, although it's very liquid, I'm sure you can get your hands on it, but is there a strategy moving forward for the timing of X amount of money moves depending upon when taxes revenues are collected?
So, yeah, so here, Mr. Allen, it's a good question, and here's kind of how it works. Think about it as almost a construction loan, as we get a whole bunch of money, which we just got a bunch of money in, and we are not able to use it. It's sitting in a fund where it's earning the highest interest. You're right, we are keeping an account with the local bank for many different reasons. A key card, it's good to have a relationship with the local bank. The local bank, though, doesn't return the sort of investment that an FL class does. In terms of your first question about how is it being managed, our funds are not being managed any differently than Florida Treasuries or the city of Tallahassee's or Pinellas County, Miami-Dade School Board. They are part of one big fund and they're managed consistently across the platform. We just get the benefit of a higher interest rate or a higher return rate based on the fact that we're part of the fund. Right. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to, it's my understanding that by statute, we are required to have a bank account. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
But I do think that's right. So we would have this in addition to the bank account that's required. Oh, please.
No, and
Yeah.
further, and I think Treasurer Mitchell will want this as well. When the Budget and Finance and Budget Committee meets, we will have the representative of that FL class there to have the discussions on what kind of percentage of our money that is currently in our bank goes into
That was more.
these accounts and then how that moves forward. So I had to process what Councilmember Hannah was saying.
That's why I was saying it's kind of like a construction loan. As you need it, you draw it down, but you don't, or in the case of PICO funds, when you guys would go to build a school, let's say the school costs $100 to build, and you get the public entity or the public finance company gives you $100. You can't spend it all on that day one, so it's a drawdown. So you take $2, and they're with sort of DINA and SICA, as they know they're going to need funds
For payroll and things like that.
right. And those automatically go into the local bank account.
And these draws of the investments that we're making with local organizations, right?
Thank you. All right. Any other questions with regards to FL class?
Yes,
Yes,
just one
please. Yeah,
follow up. I was the director and I didn't get off for program funds, general funds, there's two other categories.
So catastrophe, contingency, program, and general. Catastrophe and contingency are established by the reserve policy that this council passed, total of 10%, 2% in one in a catastrophe, 8% of that 10% would be in contingency. Program funding would be the balance of that in accordance with what is determined by the Finance and Budget Committee would go in there. And then we've got a general fund where any other funds can go in and sit. So for example, with summer funding, if a program is not using all of that funding and they return funding to us, we could then put it in that general account and let it be doing something rather than sitting in our bank account, not getting a large return.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions with regards to FL class? All right, so without any additional discussion questions, we will now take public comments as it relates to FL class. Do we have any public comments, Ms. Clark?
There's no public comment.
All right, no public comments with regards to FL class. So thank you all very much. So council members, we do have a motion and we have a second to approve. Did we get a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, we did. Okay. Remember we did. All right. So we do have a motion and a second to approve the FL class. So it is now time for us to vote on this. So Ms. Clay, I'm going to ask you to please do a roll call for us to approve this resolution.
Judge Miller,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
FL class. We're taking a vote.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Hannah,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings, Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Dr. Glenn.
Yes, all right, the resolution passes. So thank you very much. We're gonna move forward with the with FL class, and we're really excited about this opportunity. Thank you for that. Okay, it is time for us to discuss the TIPS funding. I think that's the reason why most of you are here today. So we're finally at that point in the agenda. So with that, Ms. Green, I'm gonna turn it over to you for an overview.
Thank you so much, Chair Glenn. So our small investments for program success, we had the first quarter of the new fiscal year applications that came in starting October 1st and were due by October 31st. We reviewed those applications, determined who was eligible to move forward in the process. All council members received that information. So in front of you, you have a chart that says small investment per program success. And as we did last time, we put them into categories for you to consider. And at this time, to go through that, I'm going to turn it over to Holly McPhail, who operates as our procurement.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to thank each of the council members for reviewing all of the applications and submitting their scores directly to us. As you will recall, you each had the opportunity to select a number that were recommended and then also identify a number that you did not recommend. We put that those responses into our spreadsheet and kind of emerges from that is what's before you. As stated in the email that was provided, the highly recommended has unanimous or near unanimous support. That's in that highly recommended category. And you'll see on the grid here, there are 5 organizations and they're then ordered, in order, but by alphabetical order. So it does not mean that Consulting Together Community Outreach ranked higher than Youth Entrepreneurship Program, but that they are in that same group category, but they are just alphabetical for you. The rolling total is provided to you in the second to last column. So of those 5 programs with the requests that were asked is just shy of $60,000 for the next 6 months. We've also added in a column on alignment that previously you may recall that we had it at our top 3 bucket areas, which are the big ones. Now we actually had them drilled down a little bit further to mirror the work that you guys did during your retreat work, not your strategic planning work that you did to identify which of the 8, which is that second, are impact areas. So that's where we asked them to drill down to this time round. In the second category, which is recommended, this means that there was support from multiple members of the council, but there may have been some opposition, but the number supporting it outweighed the number that did not support it, and they fell into this category of recommended. If you were to take up those, that category as well, there are 5 additional ones that would bring the rolling total to about 128.5. The next category is the consider category, and that category is where there was some support, but some opposition. In this case, the support did not outweigh the opposition, but balanced it. So it's right there, kind of what I would say on the bubble, if you will, like it's right there balanced. If you were to take that one up, it would take the total number of programs to 11 with a rolling total of 143.5. The final category is the not recommended category, and there's a couple of ways that you might have, a program might have ended up in this category. One is that it just didn't stand out as recommended amongst the others. Not to say that it's not a worthy cause or it didn't impress you or anything like that. It's just that it didn't rise above some of the others. or there was multiple opposition ranks that would have dropped it down. So we grouped all of them together in that not recommended category, because it wasn't gonna rise up to that next level. And the remaining applicants that you reviewed are in that category, but they are organized not by rank order, but rather by alphabetical order. I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Before we go to questions, will you please remind the council what was our budgeted amount of money that was allocated?
Sure. So in the budget for the year, you have put 600,000 into this line item. And this the first round that breaks out per quarter to about 150,000 is what we kind of cap it at, and then all of our training materials, that's what we do say. You'll recall that the first round that we did this, we elected 10 programs and did not exhaust the full 150. So you're certainly under no obligation to I would say abide by that. Like you don't have to fund at 150, but you certainly you could go under, you could go over. It is whatever is the pleasure of the council.
Okay, thank you very much.
I move we fund those that are cited as highly recommended and recommended.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, we have a motion on the table. I'm sorry. Please repeat your motion.
I move that we fund those that were listed as highly recommended and recommended.
Okay, and do we have a second? Second. All right, so the motion on the table is that we fund the highly recommended and the recommended. We have a second on the motion. So now we're open for discussion.
Yes.
Thank you for that. All right, so let's go to, okay, Ms. Cummings. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, I'm looking at the list as well, and I'd like to do a substitute motion to fund, if we have about 150,000 available, for this particular round, I offer a substitute motion to fund the highly recommended, the recommended, and the consider, because that would bring us to $143,555, which is below the $150,000.
Okay, so we have an alternative recommendation. All right, procedurally, we need a second to adopt the new motion, the amended motion. Do you agree? Second? Okay, so we have a second by Judge Miller to do the three categories: highly recommended, recommended, and consider. All right, so now we're up for discussion. Any other discussion questions? Yes. Mr. Watts. Oh, I said Watts, and I was looking at Mr. Jones. Mr. Watts, please.
I did share this with the executive director. And so with the process, a few things. So reviewing the proposals, we have what was in front of us. And I'm just gonna use one as an example. Most of the ones that are in the highly recommended are ones that I chose, but there's one that did not make it, which was Little Sunshine Pantries. And I thought about that because I wanted to bring this up because on surface, I looked at that and my first thought was no. But then, after doing some digging and Googling and trying to search and X, Y, and Z, like I had to pretty much kind of paint my own picture as to like why this is innovative. I think is impactful. I think will be impactful for the community, for the council, has an opportunity to touch many other things. They are doing the work. One click led to, hey, the one participant's the manager at the Grace Mission Kitchen. I used to volunteer there before the pandemic. So, okay, that ties, they're doing the work. So I bring this up is there's, I think, some way, and then I thought about, I think his name is Mr. Sims from the last time conversation. So all this kind of came to me. I think there is an opportunity for us to have a better picture from some of these folks that are applying. These requests have the potential to be life-changing for them, for the community. But sometimes reading on the paper what was in front of us, I don't have the time to go and do digging and drive around myself. So having something and versus them having to come here at public comment and then try to present that picture to us and change our mindset, And so I think there's an opportunity for a better possible process. I'm also not a fan of the not recommended, no offense, I get the process, but I'm not a fan of the terminology because it could kind of be presented that, council members we don't recommend them. And I don't know that it's necessarily the black and white picture for everyone, but it was what we were provided as an option to choose. So I just think there's some opportunities there. That's all I want to say.
So proceed, what I'm hearing from you is you would like a better opportunity for us to get more information about what these programs are actually doing, other than the summaries that we get as a.
And versus having to wait here for public comment. Then sometimes people come here for public comment, and then this has happened to us before. People come for public comment, and then it changed some of our viewpoints on what we read on paper. So
Thank you for that, Mr.
Madam
Wise.
Chair,
Mr. Dunn, yeah.
Mr. Watts, are you recommending that Little Sunshine pantries be moved up?
I am supporting I'm in favor of the highly recommended and recommended. I just want to bring that up, that if there's an opportunity for that to be considered, yes, but you know.
Let's go to Mr. Jones first with your
No,
comment.
Mr. Mitchell was before me.
Your bag's in the way. I'm sorry.
It's not my bag.
Yeah,
I put my.
okay.
Did you just call me a bag?
No, the bag was in the way. Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Mitchell.
So here, I sort of share what, some of the feelings that Mr. Watts had or spoke on. And here's my thought. Holly, if I understand this correctly, by us selecting some and not selecting others, we are in no way prejudicing ourselves for next quarter when another group comes forward. And I know that on the first round, there were folks that that didn't get funded who have made it on this round. Their application got better. Mr. Watts does have a very good point, and that is to those who, I have no idea how we're going to vote in terms of funding, but for those who do not receive the vote, I hope you hear what we're saying, and that is maybe do a slightly better job of really articulating what the program is. I too went through, and there were some that I was intrigued by. I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. And I do, a quick little search. I check Sunbiz. I went through kind of the process of some that intrigued me. And I thought to myself, wait. This is meant to be a program that we look for opportunities to fund. In this case, if we go with the recommendation of highly recommend, which is my position, we're gonna fund 10 programs. 3 months from now, I hope that Little Sunshine Pantries, which I did, there were 2 pantries, 2 feeding ones. One was outside of Leon County, one was inside. I can't remember which one Little Sunshine was, but they both struck, sort of my heart. There wasn't one that I looked at that I didn't find value in, but we sort of have to draw a line. And that's, so one, I like Mr. Jones's motion. It sort of just establishes a process by which you take 8 people that will eventually be 10 again, and you say, take a look, which ones are you really high on? Which ones are you not so high on? And let it shake out. And oh, by the way, I voted for one this time that I didn't vote for last time. And the application was so much better, and I understood it. There's my thought.
Thank you.
Thank you
for your
Madam
comment.
Chair.
Appreciate that. All right, we're gonna go to Mr. Jones and then Mr.
This is my first SIPS vote. I did not participate in the previous SIPS vote. And for me, my recommendation to offer the motion was such that we would then be able to discuss, because I know Little Sunshine Pantries, I know the impact that it has, and it's not recommended. So I don't know if we are open to recommendations that persons possibly be moved based on the comments that we would make. But then I'm also concerned about the screening process by which these come to us. Because I happen to know one that is recommended where I know that company or firm does not have the capacity to provide the services for which they are now being recommended for funding. nor do they have the capacity that I'm aware of, and I'm familiar with the persons involved, of having done any work with children. See, so that's why I'm hoping that the staff in its process will help us to segregate applications where we find there is mission creep. And that is something that is, for those of us who are involved in human services, mission creep is real. Because we've now got a ready pool of money, now persons will now reclassify or redefine themselves in an effort to qualify. And that's not what we want. So I'm hoping that for future reviews, that perhaps we have either a workshop, a discussion by which firms show capacity, experience with children most specifically. And I know it's intended, because what I loved about Ms. Green said when she brought SIPs to us, these would be firms that may not necessarily qualify at the larger RFP level. However, the stewardship of those dollars entrusted to them is no less than any $100,000 RFP. And the expectation that they'll be able to deliver and have impact with our children is not diminished either. So I hope that we will be able to revisit this when we come back to the third quarter, because second quarter, because the third round, when we come to the third round, that, we will perhaps fine tune this such that when they get to us, we'll know that they've been fully vetted and have the capacity to do what is self-described and have a track record of working with children.
Madam Chair, may I, before you go to Mr. Wright? So I think that is a great point that that Councilmember Jones has brought up. So so a couple things I'd like to emphasize. Number one, it's an iterative process for us. This is the second time, and we've done some enhancements with this round over the last round. So now we'll look at even more enhancements in the next round. So that's the first point. I wanted to address Mr. Watt's point because we had a very good, I think, conversation about his point of view, and I understood it perfectly. So what we will have to do is try to balance the need and the desire to do some more in-depth vetting and presentations with the capacity of our staff. So we will also come back to you as we're looking at this process and how we get to that place. There could be some staffing that may need to change in order to do that, because this comes around very quickly. A month, we're trying to get it all done and then bring it to you in the midst of the other funding. But we will look at that iteration, taking into consideration what Mr. Jones has said, which I think is a very salient point, as well as Mr. Watts.
If I may offer,
Yes.
and it may just be in the application, right?
And that's what.
And the application can be retooled such that is demonstrated, right? What has been what are the credentials of the persons who are associated with it, right? I mean, it's no different than when we fund not-for-profit activity. They'd have to show the school district, the superintendent, whoever, what is their capacity when they qualify for these grants. And so I understand the nobility of the intent, which is great, but we also don't want to facilitate mission creep with persons who may not qualify to meet the needs of the target population for which these monies are intended.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Jones. Mr. O'Brien.
Could you just break down the mission creep? I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. When money become available, you try to change the trajectory. Well, the strategy of your firm, right? So if I'm in juvenile justice, but now I'm going into domestic violence because there's a pot of money over there that's available. I'm going outside of my mission because the monies are available in that area. It's not in line with what you ordinarily do.
You're chasing the money.
Yeah, there it is, chasing money, chasing dollars.
Mr. Bryant.
Mine is just really simple, that, you know, they're all worthy programs, all of them provide value. I get all that, and this is the hard part of what we do. So I'm not asking to change the motions, I guess we have to say each one on the table. But what I will suggest is that part of what steered my line of thinking is where are these requests as it relates to other groups in the community in that space? If there are effective delivery systems in the community addressing the programs being presented, I'm going to focus my time and energies on those things that are unique and that have at least a targeted area where there's not a lot of activity. So I know that all of these things are out there, but there are groups that are effectively in some of these areas doing a good job checking boxes. And if they are not, if there are certain things that these groups are doing, they need to be able to demonstrate why they are unique in that space and how they are effectively addressing concerns in our community that the larger groups are not. So that's just my point, is that when we make decisions, we do have to make decisions about where we prioritize dollars, and a lot of that's based on me upon who else is already working effectively in those areas.
What I'm hearing from you is that you want to focus on gaps in the community. Okay, that was my, thank you very much.
That's right.
Ms. Cummings.
Yes, I basically, I guess, did the same as everybody else, but tried to just focus primarily on those programs that were providing direct services to our youth. You know, there were some that were providing services outside of our children. And of course, we're concerned about families as well, but just primarily those that focus on our children, and most of the ones, well, several that I recommended are in that category. But my question is, I recognize this is our small groups, but do we have some metrics or measurement metrics for these SIP groups? I know they come in afterwards and they tell us their story about how they have positively affected our youth, but do we as a council have a means of measuring outcomes, effectiveness for our youth and whatever?
Well, there's reporting that they do have to bring back, but I wanna, if I might, I wanna take us back to the reason why this was developed. And this was developed to try to give some of those smaller nonprofit organizations the ability to learn how you go about getting grant money.
Right.
So while there is some reporting that happens, many of them aren't even at the stage to know how to do a metric.
Thank you.
To know how to look at an outcome. And so this is a part of that capacity building work to get them there. The other thing that I think is important is it is a stair-step process. And I think to Council Member Mitchell's point, there are some that applied the first time. And I will just go ahead and say it, the application was a hot mess.
Yes.
Literally. Like, didn't follow the directions whatsoever. And they came back, went in informational sessions, went to capacity building. That application looked much better, was much more clear, and ended up in the recommended column. And so this is an exercise in building that capacity. So while the reporting, because that is something Councilmember Watts said the last time, while the reporting is there, again, we are building on it. And I would imagine as this moves into all the different pieces, it will become a very robust type of application, but still focused on those smaller organizations. Remember, most of these don't even have an operating budget of $100,000.
Thank you.
And so part of it, when you're looking at the budgets, you're looking at how much of that request is going to pay somebody versus how much of that request is going to a direct service. And you make that decision. How much of that request is going to a speaker versus how much of that request is going to the actual people that they serve. And then the last thing I'll say is, and your point is well taken. I always get so much in this job. Remember in our strategic planning session that Alice Lee Stansberry reminded us that every time we say yes, we're also saying no. And that just is what it is. And so I think that we can tweak this, taking the council members' feedback in place, making the application even more robust, because that's a part of the capacity building. That's a part of making our organizations that apply make their standards higher and higher, and either they're gonna meet those standards or they're gonna decide we'll try and get it from somewhere else. So yeah. Does that make?
Yeah,
Madam
it
Chair.
does. And then,
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Ms. Cummings.
just follow. And I think we're doing a good job based on what our purpose was initially. Because none of these groups would be considered in our, I guess, our big RFPs, the ITE, and they would just be totally excluded. We wanted to find a way to assist them in building their capacity. Okay, and so in that respect, you know, I recognize Councilmember Fox concerns. I think most of us, you know, did our analysis. Google did research, and some of us have firsthand information about some of these entities as well. But I think it boils down to the fact that most of them do provide services for our children, and we need to give them a chance to build their capacity, to show that that they can provide that direct services to our children, and they can assist us in moving the needle in a positive way for our children in all areas of our community. And looking at these nonprofits, they're all over the place, and they're in the primary places, zip code, where our children need the most help, the most assistance. And it's a variety of assistance that I think will help build the character of our children, which is one reason why I did the substitute motion, because the program that was on the cups, I think many of us recognize that we're within that $150,000 allocation. We recognize that particular program was in the first round of funding as far as application applied, but did not make it. So what do we say? What do we tell our children? If at first you don't succeed, try again. So we see that entity trying again. So I would hope that we would consider that, recognize that what we've got allocated would be within the realms of all of those highly recommended, and the one entity that at least 50% of us considered for funding. If there's any left, I think we could consider some of the other ones that requested 3,000 and 5,000. I mean, everybody didn't request the maximum amount, and I respect that too. I respect the fact that they did. So anyway, thank you, ma'am.
No worries. Thank you, Ms. Cummings. Mr. Jones.
My final comment on this, I'm absolutely ready to take a vote, is regardless of capacity, the necessity of metrics is by no means diminished. Because we still have to report back to our public what is, and so whether it is in the review process, it's a part of a contract that's executed, but Ms. Cummings' point is still no less valid. If a firm is still expected to report back to us what is the impact of the investment, because as they would grow in capacity, expectation is not diminished at other levels. So we may, the level of metrics, particularly for such a small amount of money, is certainly different. But the metrics that we would require are should be no less expected.
Thank you for that comment, Mr. Jones. All right, final comment, Mr. Mitchell, and then we'll go through.
Thank you very much. And sort of piggybacking on what Mr. Jones was saying, I do believe in the data. This is an opportunity for them to show us that starting small, there is data to support their programs. And if that data is compelling, the next round, they may qualify for the bigger pot. So that's the first thing. The second thing I'd like to say is there were programs that I supported that also didn't make it in, and I'm okay with that. I sort of believe, and this is why I like Mr. Jones's motion, I sort of believe that each of us always has sort of a favorite. You know, you can't help it. If you read those applications, there were some, for one, I won't point it out because I don't want to hear from them, but I really loved. I loved, in this case, I love, and they're not in the recommended. And or highly or otherwise. And I intend to seek them out and see if I can personally help. That's why I'm not mentioning who they are. But I accept the fact that my 7 fellow council members saw it differently than I do. Much like Sunshine Pantry, it's sort of, you just kind of accept it and you go with sort of the process that we established. And I'm not saying that the process is in stone, but I liked the process that we followed the last time, recommended and highly recommended, and that's kind of where I am.
Thank you very much. All right, I would like for us to move forward because we do have a lot of other things still on the agenda. So we are going to take a vote now on the alternate motion, the substitute motion, which is highly recommended, and consider, which will take us to the 143,555. So with that, Ms. Clay, do we need to do public comment? Thank you. All right, we are now.
Can I ask a question?
You definitely can.
The first motion that was up, so we don't vote on
If
that?
this one fails.
If this one fails,
Then
we go
can-
back to the original.
Okay, got it, okay.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. All right, we are now open for public comment. So do we have any public comments, Ms. Clay?
Yes.
All right.
Public comment, Mr. Stanley Sims here.
Hi, I'm Stanley Sims, 6'10", 240-pound, light skin. Is this being video or just audio?
It's,
yeah. Okay, I guess I better just find a correction. I want to say this is capacity building is how I got into this when I started Help Add under the Jeb Bush administration, which is about capacity building. If a organization such as myself is on that paper, I have met legal qualifications to receive your money. It is upon you to give me directions of how I meet that. And I think it's unfair to me because that's all I can talk. I can only testify to me. It's to accuse me of running after the dollars. I don't run after dollars. Superintendent Rocky Hanna would tell you 7 years ago, I wanted to wash buses so I could take kids that are in school and out school suspension and provide jobs for them. Not black kids. I don't say that. I don't say those on the South Side. I'm talking about all children in order to teach them a skill that they love. This gentleman here, how many of y'all go to Shell's? There's an empty garage that this gentleman was going to work with me on my entrepreneur program that's sitting empty. How many of our kids that are getting in trouble over at that convention center can fix your change your oil? How many? How many of you know over there? You know they can. Let's not stop there. We don't stop. When the CARES Act came out, we went out to kids. And what's so unfortunate, I don't have those resources so you could Google me. I don't have a website. I'm not working my behind off out there in that community. I don't have that media. You're looking at the executive director, the janitor, secretary, the accountant, the marketing man. That's me. I do all of that because I care. I'm not getting rich off $15,000. Mr. Martin, I'm not here so I can buy a better car. I'm here because our kids' needs opportunities.
Thank you very much.
May I clarify?
Please.
I was very clear when I referred to mission creep to one of the recommended firms, not the considered firm. And I did not name the recommended firm for which I was making that statement. So I didn't refer to you as.
I'm thank you. I'm deliciously proud to hear that.
Thank you very much for the clarification. Any other public comments?
Public comment, Mr. Warren Cave.
Mr. Kay,
How y'all doing?
good afternoon. How are you?
I'm blessed. I thank God to be here. First of all, I want to thank y'all for highly recommending me. And Ms. Green, I think I was one of the hot messes. You know what? 5 years ago, I was a person, I've been doing ministry 17, 20 years here. And I was one of the people that was hearing, don't go to the state or the city to get money because they're going to give it to the same people. And so I got with UPHS and I started learning. And as I told y'all last time, Miss Holly really blessed me by showing me that y'all want to help people like me. I went to the stream, went to the classes they were teaching. I went back to the board and I asked other people and I got some help with how to strategically outline what I'm doing because I write like I talk, like some other organizations do. But I can assure you this, and I'm gonna make this real quick. At 13 years old, I was selling joints and all I didn't sell, we smoked. At 15, I was selling bags of weed, doing cocaine in high school. At 18, 40 years ago today, I was carrying a pistol, smoking crack, and on my third year in the 10th grade. And I was a youth criminal, violent guy. I became homeless. I straightened my life up. One of the things I've heard in this meeting, with my money that I'm getting, January the 13th, I'm gonna have another event for kids. And I got these kids doing the DLVW. And I'm gonna write notes. I'm gonna keep statistics. The child's gonna become whole, family's becoming whole. But in the next 3 years, the DLVW, they're gonna have a desire, a lifestyle, a vision, and a walk that's gonna show that they're gonna be a part of the solution to end crime. And one thing I want to impress on these kids, the Bible says that a father will leave an inheritance to his children. Many of these kids, granddaddy and dad is broke. How can I give them the desire, the lifestyle, the vision, and the walk to change it? My paperwork, my work that I do, I'll show it to you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you please let us know which organization you're
The
representing?
Clean Start Initiative, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Mr. K, first of all, happy birthday, I guess, is in order. It is your birthday, right?
No.
No, you said.
40 years ago today, I was in school.
I'm sorry.
I was on
I thought it was,
I did 4 years in the 10th grade.
whenever your birthday is, happy birthday.
This grade, I was one of the hot messes. Thank you. I want to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Facility is amazing.
Any other public comment?
No more public comment?
No more public comments. All right. So as of right now, we are going to vote on our motion that is currently on the table, our substitute motion for highly recommended and consider. Ms. Green, I'm sorry, Ms. Clay, will you please do a roll call vote for us?
Judge Miller,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
No.
Mr. Jones,
No.
Mr. Hannah,
No.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
No.
Mr. Watts,
No.
Dr. Glenn.
Yes. All right, so the motion does not pass because we have, 5 no's and 3 yeses. All right, so with that, it is now time for us to vote on the first motion, which is to award the highly recommended and the recommended. All right, so with that, let's do a roll call vote.
Judge Miller,
No.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
No.
Mr. Hannah,
No.
Commissioner Cummings,
No.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Watts,
Yes.
Dr. Glenn.
Well, yes, but good grief, we failed again. All right, so we are,
So we're voting
Yeah,
no
it's
on
Okay, the new
this.
motion.
yeah, so I need to introduce.
What's the new motion?
Yeah, so they both failed. So, let's do another motion. Do we have another motion on the table? I will entertain another motion.
But, okay, before we make another motion, because I want to make sure I understand sort of the sentiment of my fellow council members. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
My concern is what I said at the very beginning, and that was the method by which we screen the persons for whom we consider. And so with one of them that is recommended, for which I am aware, and I'm not going to say the name of the company in public record, I cannot in good conscience facilitate what I believe is graft. And I don't know that they have that capacity, but in private conversation, if awarded, we can work with them to make certain that they have the capacity, because even if we find out ultimately they don't, we can always choose not to fund them, particularly if what my concerns are valid. But it is a recommended firm, and that's why I can't vote for them, because I know they do not qualify.
Okay. We'll go to Commissioner Cummings.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm just looking at this and trying to see if there is a way that we can come to some happy meetings. And what I'm hearing Councilmember Jones indicating is some concerns. And I know we are, as far as staff is concerned, I know staff is already overwhelmed, but would we consider perhaps a motion that would include these entities with the caveats that staff has to further maybe vet them or get more information or something like that? And I might not be saying it properly, and I know it's more work for staff, but
If I may, it's not that it's more work, because this is considered an application and a procurement. We would then be changing the rules in the middle of the process.
Okay.
So, but to Mr. Jones' point, depending on how you all vote, he can disclose his concern to us, because clearly we didn't have anything that gave us that concern about whichever organization, the organization to which he is referring. He can disclose that to us, and we can have a follow-up with that organization to discuss through what those concerns are and see what we need to do to ensure their success.
Okay.
Or not.
So on point, then this is on point. If we vote to approve certain entities, and then I guess some adverse information is disclosed, we've already voted to fund them. But disclosing the information to the executive director, and the staff would just allow them to just more closely scrutinize, they couldn't withhold the funding.
Now, we do have a process in place, and please correct me if I'm wrong. If they're not following the rules, we can't discontinue funding.
But this doesn't appear to be a matter of following the rules based on what Mr. Jones did.
If they can't enforce, it's
So
because we've done that before.
So if it's determined that what they presented as we go into contract, because all of these organizations have to sign a contract with us. And there are things that they agree to do, the metrics and what have you. So if in that conversation, we are able to say, this is what has come up, this is what has come up, this is what has come up, we need to talk that through. And we do not feel that it is substantiated that they should move forward, we can halt and we will come back to you and say, we are not able to fund them, so we need you all to basically defund that for that particular purpose. So we have some options in place.
So this is on point then, Madam Chair. So that's true of any entity that's on here.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I think we can feel safe then that if we vote, do our vote today to move forward that taxpayers' money is still secure based on what we already have in place.
Right.
Okay.
We're not just shoveling it out. If we, if in our process, because with everything, we have to have an application. And as I said earlier, with every application, I believe we get a little bit better and a little more information and a little more judicious. But if at any time it is disclosed that there is something that was either submitted that was not false or not true, or by omission, we find out something that's not false or true, we have some options there and do not have to fund that and can bring that to you. Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, Mr. Mitchell, and then Mr. White.
Well, with that being clarified, I'd like to offer a motion that we accept the highly recommended and recommended.
Okay. All right, I do want to hear the other comments, but I did hear your motion. Second, all right. So we have a motion on the table for back to our original motion, highly recommended and recommended. I'm just gonna ignore the other discussion questions. Okay, that makes me, thank you very much. All right, and then we had a second by Mr. O'Brien for that. All right, so that helps alleviate that. All right, so Ms. Cummings.
Get it. Based on that clarification from our executive director and concession, one of our council members, I would like to do a substitute motion to approve highly recommended, and considered.
All right, do we have a second for, all right, we have a second by Judge Miller. All right, so we have and what do you call it? What kind of motion do we call it? I keep on calling it alternate.
Yeah, substitute.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a substitute motion on the table that's been forwarded by Commissioner Cummings, a second by Judge Miller for highly recommended, and consider. We are now open for public comment again. We could go back to public comment.
We can.
Public comment. Any additional public comments, Ms. Clay?
In support.
Okay, thank you for your public comment. We appreciate that. All right, so it's time for a roll call vote, please.
Judge Miller,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
No.
Mr. Jones,
No.
Mr. Hannah,
No.
Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
No.
Mr. White,
No.
Dr. Glenn.
Yes, all right, so the motion has not passed. So now we go back to, do we have the new motion? All right, so the original motion is back on the table. That was brought forward by Mr. Jones, for highly recommended and recommended. Any public comment? No, all right, it's time for a roll call vote.
Judge Miller,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah,
No.
Commissioner Cummings,
Nope.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Dr. Glenn.
Yes. Our motion is passed. We got something passed. All right. So we have passed a motion. So what we are moving forward with, the motion to fund the highly recommended and the recommended SIPS fundings. Thanks to all of you that did come and to express your your comments. I know that a lot of hard work went into this. I understand that. I do truly hope that you all, especially those of you that were not funded, please take this opportunity to go back once again. There is another round. I promise it's coming back. You will have another opportunity. The dollars will still be there. We look forward to engaging with you all in the future. So I will leave those comments right there. Thank you all very much. Yeah,
And for those who are either in the considered or not recommended, to Mr. Watts's point, not recommended means not recommended this time, not all the time. I would suggest that you get with Holly the same way that Mr. Cave did, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple of months.
Mr. Hannah?
So I have a question about, this for Commissioner Cummings, about Robert's Rules of Order. So she offered us a substitute motion that had a second, and that motion is voted on before the original motion?
Right.
Yes.
So may I clarify? If a substitute motion does not get a second, it dies. I go back to the original motion.
All right, thank you all. Thank you all very much. Holly, thank you so much for bringing this forward to us. And we will move forward. However, I would like to reiterate to the staff that I did hear a lot of concerns about the process. And honestly, I know for me too, it was very difficult to make a decision just from what's here on the paper. So if you all could go back and work through, I know.
Make it more robust.
Appreciate that. Thank you. All right, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, guys, we get to move on to agenda item number 8. It is on page 44 of your packet. It is now time for us to review the Family Resource Center ITN. Ms. Green.
Yes, so
Rob.
council,
Yes.
we are here to hear the recommendation of the negotiations team for the Family Resource Center Management ITN. As you are aware, we issued this ITN. We had 2 respondents. We had an evaluation team that reviewed those. Both of those were then moved forward to the negotiation team, and the negotiation team then reviewed those. Now, to speak to that process very quickly, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. McPhail, who will quickly do a summary and then pass it over to our head negotiator.
Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. We spent a lot of time discussing the ins and outs of this particular procurement. And the only thing I'll add that Mr. Renzi will discuss is through the negotiation process in an ITN, I just want to be very clear about an invitation to negotiate, that once you get to that juncture, there's the ability to ask for a best and final proposal from the respondents and then to even go back. And in this particular case, which Mr. Renzi will speak to, we proposed an alternate proposal to the advancing entity. And we'll ask our lead negotiator to explain why we did that and what the parameters of that were, and encourage you to flip to page 44. The background, we'll go through the whole process and stipulating that, but then on the kind of the very last page, there's something that's called a contract summary. So in your packet, that's page 46. And that indicates why the individual was chosen and that the alternate proposed contract summary. And I'll turn it over to our lead negotiator, Mr. Renzi. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So first, I want to, from the team, thank the staff for incredible to work with. It was arduous, but I think we got the best result for the citizens, the community, and the council. We got 2 proposals. I think our confidence for either one to go full bore was part of the issue. Various reasons with each one.
Sorry, please repeat that. Like it was difficult to get either one to do what?
So one of the questions for the negotiators is, what's your confidence level to implement this?
Okay.
So to go from 0 to 100, which was open 3 centers, our confidence was not there. Okay. What we decided and then negotiated with the chosen entity, which was Children's Home Society, was to start slow, conservatively, and really start with a proof of concept. It was staff's idea to originally start here with a investment that you wouldn't lose. So part of the struggle for us is, if we open 3 centers, that's 3 construction costs, 3 of all of those things. And if it doesn't go right, you never get that money back. So starting small with a single center that we work closely with the staff here in your building, and at the same time doing a very robust community assessment to see, with people from the community to be hired by Children's Home Society to do those assessments and readiness, and letting the communities decide where the next center gets opened up. So with that process, we brought the applicants back to talk to them. They agreed to also subcontract with Whole Child Leon to do what Whole Child Leon does well. So we actually have both respondents going to be working together on this project, starting small with a proof of concept, but the ability to keep expanding if successful. So that is what we came up with. I think getting there was quite a process, but once somebody said it out loud, everybody was like, that's what we want to do. So again, thank you for the staff, and the team was wonderful. And I'll answer any questions if you have them.
So what I would like to do right now is to accept a motion and a second with regards to the negotiation team's recommendation, and then we'll go into discussion. So do we have a motion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I will make the motion that we accept the recommendation of the negotiation team.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the table, a second by Mr. Jones. Now we're open for discussion. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Guys. Mr. Hannah, I see you.
So can you go into, when you say that Children's Home Society and Whole Child Leon will work together, can you tell us more about the details of the structure and what it will look like and where it is? And
So one of the things that Whole Child Leon's application really focused on was mental health interventions, youth mental health interventions. I can't remember exactly what they describe it as. We're going to take that piece and have Children's Home Society subcontract with them to do that in every center. And both parties agreed to that.
And where are the centers?
The first center will be here.
Here. Correct.
And then here.
Yeah,
River City.
in this facility.
This building. The second center will be in one of the 3 or 4 identified: Fort Braden, Frenchtown.
Town country.
Yeah, but the community teams from that community will determine which one goes first.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Jones, is your architect up?
Yes.
All right.
I'm trying to.
Okay.
It's a Shakespearean poem.
Is it long enough for me to leave?
No.
Lady Macbeth, here you come.
My only, I understand what we're doing here, but it seems to me, when we went through the very first process.
Right.
And we talked about the centers being identified and the locations, that metric forced us to go into a whole different process. And now we find ourselves here. Well, if we're starting the first center here, that could have been an option when we first started the process.
Exactly. So.
I mean, and that might be for us as a council to consider. And I mean, outside of staff, because it was based upon what we decided. But when we had the applicants before, one of the things that we talked about in the way they were even evaluated was whether or not they would have
The capacity.
be able to have impact across the footprint that we had identified as areas of great need. I understand we're starting here, but that runs afoul of what we have said in our own discussions about the impact that we wanted these family resource centers to have. We wanted to be right in the heart of the community. And not in one sole location. And although, and I understand may have room, but we're off the beaten path for the targeted families that we want to serve. I don't know if we're on a bus route, but even still, it makes it more difficult. So therein lies my concern about how we're starting out the gate with the Family Resource Center, because we want to have impact, particularly in those areas based upon the overlay. We talked about that overlay of disparity found in those targeted neighborhoods. We want to make certain that we were be able to cover it all. And I know out here in Shangri-La, right, in this commercial district out here, it will not have the same effect. That's my observation.
Do you want me to answer?
Please.
So we felt the same way. However, the first process will be a 9-month process only, and then move into one of those designed neighborhoods. I think the issue of opening here was part of, we didn't feel either applicant was ready to just stand it up without a lot of technical assistance. And that was better served here than out in the field. Mr. Mitchell was part of the but I think that's just where we got. And then there were part of the issues, I'm sorry, Mark, was the locations inside where those were. Chris, I'll speak a little bit for Christique, was very concerned about, it can't just be this, it needs to be here in this community, not in this particular place. So part of the proposed items were also one of the things that we wanted some more evaluation on as to where, with the exception of Fort Braden Community Center, there was issues with the locations proposed in those communities from people in the community.
Thank you. Mr. Randolph.
Yeah, and so I sort of had the privilege really of sitting on both the evaluation and negotiation team. And Mr. Renzi, as our chief negotiator, but I tip my hat to you, you did a fantastic job. We really struggled. That question that he asked was on both the evaluation scoring sheet as well as the negotiation scoring sheet. Your confidence that either one of these entities could perform what we were asking them to perform. And that's the only reason that I was like, I don't want to spend money to build something that ultimately fails. Part of all of these proposals is a requirement. This is part of the national model that the community members have sort of a council, an advisory council, and you put the advisory council together. They come from different parts of that particular area, the three areas that we're talking about, and they get to pick where they would like the center to be housed. The council, the neighbors, the people who actually live in that part of the community.
Not the respondent.
No. So the respondent will stand up an advisory council made up of members of the community. Those members of the community will say to them, and this was Mr. Renzi's point, we would prefer it not be here, because if you put it here, it makes it so other people that are part of that same community don't feel comfortable coming. We would recommend it be somewhere else where everyone in that part of the community felt comfortable coming. The same thing is true with which services in particular they would most like. It seemed a little, it was like almost like, oh no, we know what's best for you. Well, really? How do you know? You know? Yeah. You don't live in this community. The advisory group would sort of drive that conversation. And the final thing I'll say as it relates to the selection here is it gives us a chance to crawl before we walk and walk before we run. We have the two vendors, the two respondents come here and begin to sort of establish themselves. Mr. Jones, your point was a point we all talked about. One, is it on a bus route, which it is. And then there was this issue of, even though it doesn't fall dead center in the middle of one of the areas that we ask that they target, it's close to all of them. And we don't want to make this a family resource center, the ultimate family resource center. We wanted to kind of just get it going and give the two really Children's Home Society the ability to stand it up. It's a place that people could begin seeking services immediately. As we establish those neighbors, councils, I forget what they call them, but allow them to dictate which one goes first and what services will be provided and where precisely those services would best be provided. And Children's Home Society can then begin to roll them out. So candidly, without doing it that way, I don't think that anybody felt comfortable that it was that we should just go out and spend $4 million.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just one last question. If the applicants and respondents, if their applications were, and y'all, I may be putting words in your mouth, subpar, why didn't we start the process all over again like we did in the previous round?
Good, and I read before I started on round 2, I reread round 1. Both respondents, I think, did a better job than the 2 respondents from before. Truthfully, I was disappointed that at least one of the respondents didn't take what the council said and respond again. Because I think a lot of value came out of, again, having sat on both the evaluation committee. To Sika and Holly's credit, they put people on those 2 committees who were exceptional. There was a woman from Gainesville who essentially runs a family resource center. I forget her last name, but Pebbles is her first name. This woman is brilliant. And she started it 10 years ago, right? I'm sitting there going, I don't know. I mean, I can read, but I don't know what it means to run one of these things. She does. She's done it for 10 years. So we had the benefit of true expertise as it relates to delivery of these services. And before the negotiation team begin step 1 of the negotiations, the evaluation team sat down. I sat down with myself. I was, hard to believe, I know, but I was quiet because they were so much smarter and they knew so much more.
I do have a question for you, and I do see things coming.
Can I answer it?
Please, absolutely.
So, Mr. Jones, I think one of the differences was the last time as the negotiation team, I was on the negotiation team last time. I believe Mr. Watts led the negotiation or the evaluation team last time. They never sent it to us. They didn't recommend any of the applications move forward. So again, we only deal the negotiations with what gets moved to us. And this evaluation team sent both of them to us. So that's why the process was different than the last time.
Thank you for that. To follow up, and I do see this coming, so I promise I'm gonna come to you. But what concerned me when I read this, because my mind went exactly to where Mr. Jones went. The fact that y'all put them on the 9 months, which I like that approach, but it said to me subliminally, there wasn't a full level of confidence that they can completely do this. So we're gonna give you a trial period just to make sure you can handle this. That's what I read when I saw that.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, what's your level of confidence? Like you asked Ms. Green, like on a scale from 1 to 10, given what you know, how confident are you that they can take this and make this work? Because we're gonna invest money and need it to work.
Yeah, Dr. Clement, it's a great question. And I was sort of a doubting Thomas to begin with. I came around as the 2 respondents began answering questions, and it really did get to roll up your sleeves and let's talk about it. The 9 months was not meant to send the signal that we didn't have confidence in them. What it was meant to do was to say, we'd like to get something like the beginning of what it's going to look like. And oh, by the way, we would like them under the direct supervision. It's a requirement that they're under the direct supervision of the CSC staff. How great would it be as they're standing it up that the direct supervision is right here? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if this process allows far more input from the communities that we as a council have made, and the needs assessment made the determination that those communities were the ones who most needed the services. And and I'm only speaking for myself, I felt uncomfortable making a decision as to what is best for a group of people. By the way, it's not in my community. So that's why we felt good about standing it up for 9 months here and sort of building the concept and allowing true input from the members of those communities.
So you feel that level of confidence is there? You did reach, okay, thank you. That's helpful for me. Commissioner Cummings.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank the evaluation committee, negotiation committee for all of your hard work, working on this. But I just got a lot of concerns about this. Judge Miller knows that when you're working with the prosecutor and you're trying to work a deal for your client with the prosecutor, you try to work a deal that's gonna pass what we call the smell test, so that the judge will approve it. This just didn't pass the smell test with me, council members, and I'll tell you why. Number one, we agreed to go back, edit the proposal, send it back out, because the first time we only had 2 applicants. We weren't comfortable with 2 applicants. We said we wanted to redo it. We wanted to get more interest from other applicants to apply. First round, 1 applicant scored 71. The other one scored, I think, in the 40s, but we weren't comfortable. I asked this council to negotiate with the entity that scored 71, just like you all did. We did not agree to move it forward. $4 million. $4 million is at stake here. And looking in the summary, it indicates that we're going to encumber, that $4 million for the duration, I guess, of the resource centers. But I have a major problem looking at the evaluation results, being asked to approve a $4 million expenditure for a group that scored 67 on the evaluation.
Amen.
The first time around, we had a 71 and we refused to move forward. We wanted to send it back out. We did. The group that scored the highest is not even being recommended. It's the group that scored 67. And I believe that's the group that came before us 2 months ago asking for emergency funding. And I know we wanted to give emergency funding to that group, but we didn't have any criteria in place. And I guess that's why I was concerned about it, Madam Director, because they really needed money and I wanted to give them money, but we gotta have some process in place. But this is the same group that was before us. Now, I don't know if they got experience in that. And I know, Madam Director, this is a group that you were the executive director of before you came to the Children's Services Council. So when you were executive director, did you all do any, did you have any resource centers? Did you all do any resource centers?
So I did not have any, but they currently have resource centers that they manage.
Okay.
That group does.
Okay.
If I may,
Yes, please.
further, okay. So Mr. Renzi is gonna have to leave here shortly, so we need to make sure we're done with him. He's gotta go to his
Next meeting.
his board. And so if we're okay, I think Holly and myself could handle any further questions you all have.
Is there anything else you would like to say?
I would just say, I don't disagree with you. If you would have asked us to vote on what was handed us, we would have sent it back. We did not want to do that a second time. There are other,
Repeat that again.
Yeah.
if you'd have just given us these 2 proposals as an RFP instead of an ITN,
Right.
we would not have moved
The
forward
2 current applications.
without the ability to negotiate as the ITN. So part of this is we only negotiate with who gets sent to us. The evaluation team led by Mr. Watts did not send us any the first time. The evaluation this time team sent us those, and they sent them with those scores. Once I get it, then I have to negotiate in good faith with both of them. So.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. Yeah, please, Mr. Jones, and then I'll come back. Okay.
I redeemed the rest of wanted to.
Rob, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, she wanted. No, I thought.
Are you done really?
No, I'm not. She's not done.
Okay,
So
so
we're gonna let her finish.
But I thought they gave the directive, she was adding something about the resource center.
Yeah. So yes, for full disclosure, I did come from Children's Home Society as the regional executive director. At that time, we were not running Family Resource Center. However, Children's Home Society has a whole community solutions business line that they have stood up and moved forward in that time since I've been there, and they are currently operating a Family Resource Center / Wellness Center. I believe it's in Putnam County. So yes, the scores were what they were at the evaluation time. The evaluation committee chose to move them both forward, and they had a very exhaustive discussion, if I might say. When they move it forward to the negotiations team, for all intents and purposes, those scores don't exist anymore. And when I say don't exist, I mean that it moves to that next phase, which is to see what is the best and final that we can get from each of these. First time we've ever done this in this community. And each of those respondents even improved on what they submitted when the negotiation team read through their information. So equal information or equal questions were sent to both. And then they come back after they give us the best and final. And then they were even able to ask specific questions to each one of the organizations. So that's the first thing. So once it goes to negotiation, I don't want to say that evaluation doesn't exist. What I will say is, once it moves to that point, you're basically starting from zero. So that's number one. Number two, to address the issue about the locations. It is very hard to ignore when you have someone on your evaluation team that is very concerned about people outside of a neighborhood determining whether a neighborhood is ready for anything, any services, any centers, whatever that might be. And so that particular person, I'll say it was Christique Henry, was very much in favor of having a proof of concept, because in our community, nothing like this currently exists. You have family resource centers in name or pantries in name, but you don't have any that actually abide by the national standards of the national organization that encourages the establishment of these FRCs. So this is going to be new in this community, period. It's going to be a new concept. So with that, the negotiations team felt that the best and finals were absolutely better for one organization, CHS, than they were in the initial application, which is perfectly fine. But they wanted to ensure that we gave the best possible chance of success. And with that, felt like if they started here at this facility, which while it may not be in a targeted zip code, it is absolutely adjacent to those zip codes. Hartsfield is there. There are several apartment complexes here on St. Augustine Road. There is a bus line on St. Augustine Road. We have the vet center here to our right. And I just found out that Disc Village is looking at office space to have services behind us. So with that, we are in a space where people have already come to seek out services from us, but we just don't have any services to give them. So with a 9-month shortened contract, the negotiation team felt like it gave them an opportunity to have a real live laboratory, if you will, to stand up those services get their feet wet, be right adjacent to our team, build it out. We wanted to have kind of a mini resource room here anyway. And simultaneously, while that is happening, they would hire community engagement persons from each of those target neighborhoods to stand up a community advisory council that can then work with that community engagement person as well as CHS to determine if they are ready for this type of infusion, because it is not.
I just have a question.
Yes.
This community council and community engagement person and process, was that a part of the respondent's application or
Yes.
was that a part of the negotiation?
It was a part of their original application. That particular respondent was going to hire those people anyway. That was a part of their model.
And their model did not have centers identified in those targeted locations.
So both of the responses did have areas identified. During the negotiation, what was brought up, and so it's public record, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. For example, the location in Springfield, the location that was suggested was in the Springfield Housing Authority.
Mhm.
The concern was people from that neighborhood who live outside of that housing authority are not gonna come into the housing authority to try to access services. That was the thought from on the negotiation team. So part of the best and final was, okay, go back and look at a location that might be adjacent. So you've got build out, you've got all of these different costs, and that came back to the negotiation team.
It seems to me as if, and I know that the negotiation team is well intended, but it seems as if we're doing their homework. And I think that somehow this is, for us to be in the second iteration of this, it doesn't seem to, we seem to be far too involved.
Yes.
Too involved in the operation, into how this is manifest in a way that we did not do in our previous process.
Amen.
We didn't, so if I may, we never got to that point in the previous process because this council didn't move. Well, first of all, the evaluation team didn't recommend that either one of those proposals move forward. So we never got to a point where we could have the kinds of discussions that we had during, and we didn't have them. The negotiation teams had during that process.
I apologize. I have to go dress as Santa for 300 children over in Joe Louis Springfield. I wish I could be ready for the vote, but I've got to go.
Okay, thank
Right,
you.
thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yes, I really never finished my comments.
Please, all right.
But it.
So I was just trying to finish, so to address your issue. And I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'm gonna say it. I know CHS's track record. So let's go back to SIPs. We just talked about SIPs and how we just may not know everything that the organization is doing because of the way the application was set up. That's what Mr. Watts said. In the case of CHS, the original application really didn't necessarily show you all of those things that they're doing in that community solution space. Because I work there, I know what they do. I know the work that they've done in the community solution space with the community partnership schools, with the FRCs and all of that. So if you were to ask me if I have confidence that they can do this, my answer would be yes. And that's not a biased answer, it's a knowledgeable answer. That being said, though, I understand all of the concerns. Do I feel confident with building a center up here where we can have our hands on every piece of it just to make sure that it's moving in the right direction before the communities come back and say with the ready, and there is an actual readiness assessment that is done where that next center would be. I feel confident in that, but ultimately it is your decision whether we move forward with this or not. Maybe the decision is our community is ready. So I hope I answered your question.
Just follow up, do we have a metrics for determining whether or not the outcomes are gonna move our children forward?
So there are metrics that come with using the standards for the FRC. And that's a part of the contract that is built when we have that contract with CHS, and they are the ones that are held accountable for those outcomes in that contract.
Or getting the center started up, what have you,
Timelines.
we're not talking about something that's gonna happen next year or the year after as far as measurement outcomes, right?
Well, we measure at every quarter. So,
I mean,
so
for the program, for the centers to be established, it's not gonna be established overnight. Is what I'm
no,
saying.
but we have a 20, how many months?
So
So the first one would be
26
9 months.
Originally, it was gonna be 26 months, so the 9 month, I think the biggest shift is just where they will actually go and building the capacity of the community to receive them. That's like, so that is about a 9 month process, but the standards at the national level, if they're followed, are research proven to reduce child abuse and neglect and to increase family supports. That's why we're mandating use of the national standards as part of that process. But to your point, will we have them within the first 6 months? No. I'm looking at Stephanie in terms of how quickly it starts to reveal itself, and it's usually about I think that the earliest was about a 24-month period of service provision, but more quickly at the individual family level. To see the needle move, so to speak, in the community will take longer, but for the individual family, it starts as early as 6 months.
More questions?
I'm just about done, and I just want to remind the council members, we have never funded a program that scored in the 60s. We have never funded a program to the tune of $4 million. That's a big expense. And I think Mr. Watt said it 2 months ago, we need to be deliberate, we need to slow down, we need to take our time. But I'm just concerned that the whole child Leon that scored more is not being recommended. But Children's Home Society of Florida is being recommended with the requirement that they subcontract the whole child Leon. I don't know, it's just a whole, it just doesn't.
Final comment.
Okay, I'm not finished. Oh, I'm not finished. And the other thing I want us to be mindful of is what the city and the county are proposing as far as the CHSP process. We're gonna have a presentation from one of the assistant county administrators. And there's a possibility that it might be at least 31 nonprofit entities that might not receive funding from the county of the city after this 2-year cycle ends. And they're proposing that those entities come to the Children's Services Council. This $4 million can go a long way in assisting those entities that are now providing direct services, to our children. So I just want us to consider that as well, but I just have great concerns about this recommendation with the scores, with everything. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien.
I think it's worth noting that as you go through the evaluation, you're basing it upon certain things being in place. And one of the things that we need to recognize that whole child Leon, there was a change in leadership, a major change in leadership. And not knowing any of the details, you have to factor that into the decision. Second of all, I do believe this process is important for us to advance the mission of the Children's Services Council. Just doing more of what we've been doing in the past, I don't think it's going to deliver the type of outcome that we're trying to achieve. I think we really do have to change the approach and change the vehicle. And this is part of that change. That being said, I do agree that, we're rolling the dice here on an important project that has significant cost. I get the impression, and this came from Mr. Renzi and everything else, is that
one of the reasons why we wanted to start in this building was to more or less see how it performed with training and so on before putting it out in the market. And the question I would have, and this is really to Sika, is if we start seeing that this is not going to be an organization that's capable of carrying forward this level of a project, delivering the types of outcomes that we need and expect, are we as a group able to pull back from the commitment that we're making if we really see some shortfalls and reassess? That's the question.
Absolutely. So that was one of the reasons the negotiation team wanted to go with a 9-month contract in the beginning. But even in that, part of our contracting gives those types of clauses that, let's say 3 months in, something shifts and it doesn't look like it's working, we have the ability to exit.
Yeah, so I'm going back to, I think that what we're trying to do is develop a different approach that's going to yield a different outcome. So that means that the last one, and this is probably, I may be throwing a grenade in the room on this one. We're relying on people coming to us, basically offering up how they can provide service. So we're basically at the mercy of volunteers saying, I think I can do that. Let me put a plan forward.
Not really. So part of the plan is the entity that gets the FRC management. Part of that funding is for them to secure a contract with organizations to provide those services.
Okay, but going back to this, but again, we're relying on, in this case, Whole Child Leon, the Children's Services Council, et cetera, they came forward to us, right? We didn't solicit.
Well, we said to them, here is a national model that you come one, come all. Here's a national model that you have to use and provide a response. I think that the national model has been implemented in many different places. Neither Whole Child Leon or Children's Home Society, with the exception of Putnam County, which is a recent occurrence, has stood up a family resource center that is based on a national standard. So yes, we said, come forward, but come forward and you have to meet these specific requirements.
So the question I have is there an organization community that we think could develop this in the community, in the region, that we could go out and tap on the door and ask them if they would be willing to step into this role? I mean, it sounds like there's a confidence gap with both of these groups. Not to say that they can't do it, but and the reason why we're bringing them here is because we do want to see how they perform, right? So that just is an indication that we think that there's some questions whether they can step up and deliver at this level. Is there a group out there, and I don't know what that group would be, if it's to an academic institution or whatever, is there one that we say, we want you to consider this and then go out and draw them into the conversation versus relying upon others to come and say yes on their own as volunteers in the process?
So can I just again, each one of these proposals brought forward partners like FSU.
Yeah.
So that was part of their proposal. Mr. O'Brien, you raised a really important point. Again, I was part of the evaluation committee. No one on the evaluation committee knew of the issue with Whole Child Leon. I did, which put me in a really horrible spot because
well, it's now public knowledge.
It is. I mean, it is public knowledge, but I didn't know what to do because I'm looking at an evaluation. And if you notice, I didn't score either terribly well. To Commissioner Cummings' point about grades, 71. I think I gave them both a 49. Okay, as the evaluation committee. Now to Dr. Glenn's question, what's my level of confidence? That's $4 million, which I think is a big number and it's an important number. It's not going to be spent. That's why I'm very confident in an incubator here where we're not spending any startup money. We're seeing if we got it right. And we're seeing if we got it right in terms of using the national model, having the partners that Children's Home Society and Whole Child Leon has brought in. We get guidance from the folks that, whatever the national organization is that created this model. Seeing if this is the right way of going. And oh, by the way, this really was important too. Initially, I didn't even think about this. You really do get this. I know it's right. It's right for this community. Really, have you ever walked into that community? You know, so that's why I felt like, gosh, I really think we need. Yes, we did the needs assessment, but we never. This is going deeper. And the Children's Home Society, part of their response, and was this, it moved me. It moved me from that. Heck no. And Commissioner Cummings, I love hearing your concern all the time of how these dollars are being spent and not wasting money. I think if we wrote a $4 million check and just said Children's Home Society, Whole Child Leon, and all the partners that you've assembled, go forward and do great things. All of us should hide our head in shame because that is not my level of confidence.
Well, going back, I'm confident in the model. I'm confident that what we're doing in this community now is not working, but this is a different approach and should, and we're all hoping that yields a different outcome. The model, the delivery vehicle is the big question mark. And if we feel confident that we can start down this training wheels, incubator, whatever you want to call it, model for 9 months, and we feel that it's not going to get us where we need to go, if we feel confident that we can pull back and reassess and start all over, then I would be in favor of that, because I do think we have to get moving on something. But I don't want to commit us to $4 million and say, okay, here it goes. Go forward and let's just hope and pray they get it right.
Right. So that's not what the recommendation is saying. The recommendation is saying, let's start with 9 months, proof of concept.
All right.
As it moves forward,
My questions
we
have
can
been
go
answered.
there.
Okay, got it.
And let me answer your first question. Because there are entities that do this now, while it may not be apparent, when we've done this twice and we've only got 2 respondents both times, I would yield to our general counsel about trying to sole source something when there are entities that do it. And so we've already done 2 competitive procurements. But you know, to your point, so yeah, $4 million is a lot of money, and there are a lot of different things that are going to happen in this community. Our counsel is to try to do it differently, because what we've been doing isn't working, or at least it's not working. It's not working.
Why are we saying it's not
exponentially. I think that, well, I believe
After
that
great reading
you said
scores,
the
they get
council
better.
is
I mean, you go through the metrics and they're just not moving. Well, third grade reading, I look at third grade reading scores.
Yeah.
And they're going down.
Birth weights.
But this support, I'll refocus, I know I'm out.
Yeah, it's okay. I do want to address, allow Mr. Watts and then Judge Miller, who've been patiently waiting, and then we can come back. Mr. Watts.
So definitely want to respect the evaluation team and pass it on to the evaluation team and respect the negotiation team. Sound like what I heard from negotiation team was ultimately they had to, but if it was up to them, they wouldn't have. But that is what it is. That's the process. No, that's not what I heard.
That's what it is. I was part of it.
I know, but that's what he said.
But right, that's what I want to, what we got, we would not have recommended. That's the idea of the ITN. Once we began to negotiate and once we began to ask for best and final offers for them to come back, then we were comfortable. Yeah, This is, I mean, I went the full evolution, heck no to I voted in favor. So everyone, what started out a little bit, if what we were handed, we had to pick one or the other and say, here, full Children's Services Council, we think you should support this. What Mr. Renzi was saying is we would not have. However, we went through days and questions and where both respondents gave a best and final offer that was dramatically different than their first proposal. And that is part of the ITN process. That is what we were comfortable bringing forward with the recommendation and a unanimous recommendation.
Appreciate that. And then really three more things. I wish I would have watched the discussion of the evaluation team. But the other thing is the incubator proof of concept. Let me just ask the qualifying validating question on that. 9 months, that's for $620,000, right?
Is that when the budget came out?
Okay. And so that's $620,000 for 9 months. So that is measurements are being tracked at month 2. Like we're on track, or how's this? Go ahead.
Okay, and Holly, maybe you or CK can answer this, but that $620,000, actually we have the winning or recommended respondent here. But I believe that $620,000 in terms of metrics, if you're saying, oh, they're hiring a community outreach person, that if that's one of the metrics, check. Because that's where the $620,000 is standing what will ultimately be the model that we use up and beginning to provide some of those services here. But not all of the services are going to be provided. They could actually be identical. It's unlikely that they will be identical. For example, in Fort Braden, there is a need for English as a second language, a much higher level of folks who do not have a command of the English language in Fort Braden that we don't have in the other two targeted areas. So they may have more of a focus on training in English and helping folks. The needs may be different. Again, we won't know what all the needs are that need to be addressed until the outreach person is hired by Children's Home Society and the advisory council is established.
Was it safe to say, so this contract summary right here, like these bullets here, this is what is the expectation to be met in the 9 months?
And this is bulleted. It's going to be more spelled out in the actual contract for that 9 months. And if I can further say, I think the national. So Pebble Edelman was from, so that's her last name, Mr. Mitchell. Pebble Edelman was on the evaluation team and stood up FRCs over in the Alachua County area. But when we consulted with the national organization, it's about $400,000 to stand up a real FRC. When you're looking at concrete support, when you're looking at the employment and all of those different things. So this is a summary of that amount.
One more question.
And so I think I asked this before and I can't remember, but the FRC in general, how do we come up with this idea?
Okay, so when we were working on the strategic focus from the work that you all did even before I got here, and we put together a strategic framework. And in that framework, we had high quality early learning first. We didn't really move on that. The very next section was family supports. And in family supports, our research after looking at the needs assessment, talking to other CSCs, having these community listening sessions, we came up with these categories. Youth mentoring was one, and that was a need you all awarded in that area. Family, parent education, and family strengthening was the second one you all awarded in that area. And repeatedly, community members said, I wish we had a place somewhere in our neighborhood that would keep me from having to figure it all out. There was a place-based service center, if you will. And so we did the research, and FRCs is that answer. Specifically, FRCs help to reduce maltreatment and child abuse and have those family supports there, which was why those neighborhoods were targeted. But again, when they moved to the negotiation phase, and it's not to negate the scores, Chair Cummins, Madam Cummins, it's not to negate the scores, but I think it is important to acknowledge the movement from the first submissions to the best and final. And there was a greater understanding, there was a depth of knowledge, there was a true synergy, I believe, between the negotiation team and the two entities. And one of the entities could not stand up to what the negotiation team requested. Another entity did, CHS. And so the negotiation team came up with an option to try to accomplish what it is that this council said we wanted to do. To Council Member O'Brien's point though, the contract absolutely will allow us to exit if this isn't working. My biggest fear, and I've said that before, is that we have paralysis by analysis and don't move forward taking some steps to try to address that theory of change. And this is a step to address that theory of change.
I do want to move forward. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
My question was a little teased out, some of the questions that the Watts has, but what is the greatest financial exposure we have in these 9 months? 620,000.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, how would we feel if at the end of that 9 months it doesn't work out and we've spent $620,000? That's one of the concerns. I've listened to a lot of the concerns. I think those are valid. And so I'm wavering, to be honest with you, because I know I have a lot of confidence in the process. And I listened to some of the, as much as I could, some of the items on the web, but I didn't get a chance to listen to as much as I wanted to, but my overall feeling is I'm feeling like it's kind of forced. Yes. That's the biggest challenge. So, and it could be more how I feel in the moment. And so that's the biggest challenge I feel with the decision of the magnitude. Just seems great effort, great work. It seems a little forced in the sense that one of the questions you put out was, are we even ready for it? Right? And I don't know if you asked in that way, but that's one of the questions I have. Maybe it's not ready right now, maybe it's not right. And I hear that, okay, it's a game changer, theory of change. So, the judge is vacillating all over the place, to be honest with you.
But if I can qualify my statement, my statement was based on the decision you all made. So if you all decide you don't want to approve this, then when I say maybe the community isn't ready, it's because you all are making that decision about this, not once, but twice. So maybe that you all are representing the community. That's what I meant by that. Do I think the community needs this? Absolutely. Because that is what we were hearing in all of the community listening session. And so for me, it's not forcing it. It is trying something to see if it works. And unfortunately, we have to spend money to do that. There is no 100% thing that we're gonna fund and it is going to work. We know it's gonna work because it has happened here or there. Every community is different and you could have a tried and true partner that comes in, we've done it all over. And then they come in here and because of whatever, it doesn't work. So I guess in my estimation, you do have to make a best guess, right? The person, I said this to Mr. Mitchell, the person with the most clues makes the best decision. I feel like we have the clues. I feel like the work has been done. I feel like we have the option that if it's not moving in the right direction, we can make that decision way before we get to $622,000. So, and our team is working hard every day to bring some solutions that are innovative and a little different from what's been happening. And if we don't approve this, which you have every right to do, I'm not sure what our next move is. I guess we go back to strategic planning, which we'll do in January. We are fairly sure that you're going to be moving in that high quality, early learning, early childhood space. And we'll finish that up and look at how we effectuate that. And then I guess go with your secondary and your tertiary. But it's hard for me to say we shouldn't at least give this a try when we heard repeatedly that is what people wanted. So
Thank you. I'm gonna hear one more comment from Ms. Mitchell, then we're gonna move to a vote. So we can move quick.
I'm getting my card up.
Okay, I can do that. Okay. We got you. All right. Ms. Cummings.
No, Madam Chair, Councilmember, I just want us as a body to just maintain our integrity as we go through these processes. That's all I want.
Amen.
And 2 months ago, the entity that we are recommending to get $4 million to came to us asking for emergency funding. They were using federal funds. I wanted to give them funds. We were waiting we never got it. And then 2 months later, they're being recommended for $4 million. And they indicated 2 months ago that they work in several different counties, not really cited in Leon County. They work
the CSC. It's based here in Leon County.
Oh, okay. Well, no. The Children's Home Society.
It's statewide.
Statewide, right. Yeah, it's a statewide entity. Whole Child Leon is the entity here in Tallahassee there at the highest score. But I want us to be accountable to the taxpayers, accountable to the public. And I just want us to not have the appearance of impropriety. I want what we do when we go forward with our procurements. I want it to be clean and honest and what have you. And I don't know, to me, the fact that we never got emergency or the request to give them any money. And then today we got the recommendation for them and not Whole Child Leon to get the $4 million. It's just concerning for me. That's all. And I'm just being honest about it. Thanks.
Again, it will be a part of the record that's made public. The exact point that Commissioner Cummings raised, $250,000 from an organization that had known about the fact that they were going to be missing that $250,000 well in advance. Over a year before they came to us, I struggled with, and I put it on the record in the evaluation committee as well as the negotiation committee. So I share Commissioner Cummings' concern. Again, just keep in mind your question to me, my level of confidence. Is it a 10 out of 10? No. But am I confident that that the model that we've set up and the contract that we are looking for the support of this council can work? Yes, I am. I'll do it. Now I'm going to go back to March 23rd. Our meeting at Pineview, and be asking the same question, Mr. Watts. How did we get here? I've never even heard of a family resource center. How did we get here? What is the family resource center? To say I was the doubting Thomas, I was definitely the doubting Thomas, which is part of the reason when I was like, well, I'll sit on the evaluation committee, I'll sit on the negotiation committee, because I don't think we're ready for prime time. And I used that term several times during the process. What I will tell you is this. I know Commissioner Cummings said, that she would support finding a way to fund the Children's Home Society for the $250,000. I wouldn't. Any entity that knows about a deficit for over a year and waits the last minute to come to us, very different section of the Children's Home Society, I wouldn't support. The efforts, I made the motion. I am A-okay if this council votes it down. I don't want you to believe that I am raw championing this. But very much like what Ms. Green said, and I share this with all of you. I like the idea. I now believe in the concept of a family resource center. I really do. I took the time to read about what differences successful ones are making in other communities. I also will point out that the lady who started the one in Alachua County, Ms. Edelman, Pebbles Edelman, when we said $4 million, she was like, holy mackerel, $4 million. It was like her dream would have been $4 million. Which is, again, is part of the reason I like why don't we learn to crawl before we walk and walk before we run? I leave it at that. I think that I am a believer in family resource centers. I truly am. I believe that the two entities involved combined can meet needs that are not currently being met in this county. And I believe that by starting it here, that's close to several of the targeted zip codes, not Fort Brayton, but several of the other zip codes, I think we accomplished something. And that's why I voted yes on the motion at the negotiation committee and made the motion today.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call for a vote, but I do want to comment on. Are you? Okay. So I've had a lot of emotions as a part of this conversation today. To be honest with you, I've gone back and forth. I do believe in the model because I remember those people being a part of those sessions talking about we need some place where we can go and just have somebody. I will never forget that lady that was walking with that walker who said she just needs somebody to do her granddaughter's hair. And that touched my heart like nothing else in the world because I wanted to braid it myself if I could. It's like, let me help you. So I do believe in the model. The $4,000, the $4 million is a boatload of money. And I'm not 100% confident that the organizations that we have brought forward is going to do what we need done. And that bothers me because that's a lot of money. I mean, that's a lot of money. Now, I'd much rather spend the $620,000 and that gives me a little bit more confidence. And what I am going to ask is that if we do fund this tonight, that y'all monitor them like all get out, because I want to know, at every step of the way, is this working and is this money being of value? And at the end of the 9 months, I would like a full-blown report. Here is where we are, because that needs to be confirmed for me before we fund anything else. And so, that's one major thing that I am very concerned about. The other thing I want to mention
real quick, you'll know way before now.
Okay, I appreciate that because I want us to be paying attention to this, and a part of me wants to ask for every single meeting we have, where are we? Like, what's the situation? Yeah,
we'll absolutely do that
because I need that level of confidence. One other thing, and then I'm going to go for a vote.
Public comment.
Yeah, before comment. Thank you. All right. In hindsight, I do wish that for the organization that did not have an opportunity to negotiate, had an opportunity to negotiate. I just want to say that because you went from a no to a yes during that negotiation phase because they got to tell their story. You know, they had an opportunity to come around and say, here's what we can do. I just want us to keep that in mind for the future, because I do believe we probably would have landed in a different situation with an organization that has a location smack dab in the heart of one of the communities that we're targeting. And we missed that opportunity, you know, and so I just wanted to say that because in hindsight, it's like, I got it, you know, they really didn't have an opportunity to say that. But those are my thoughts. I'm going to keep this brief because we are at 6:26 and we still have a lot of agenda items. So I'm going to move forward to public comment and then we'll go to a vote.
Public comment, Mr. Stanley Sims.
Oh, I'm sorry. Stanley Sims, 1320 Avondale Way. If I was in the courtroom, I asked a motion to approach Your Honor. Here's my point. We just look at the consideration that was given to a $4 million bid. But look at the strenuous actions on individuals getting $15,000. You had one in consideration. One. You had extra money in the allocated $150,000 you were going to spend, Your Honor. And we have a contract the size that Mr. Mark would be giving out to two that you're not even comfortable with poor scores. And guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna assist them to what? Build capacity. And what do these do? Build capacity. We're gonna risk $600,000. But when we came here, the risk was only 15 because you only had one in consider. Look at the allowances. How do I view that from 3,800 square feet? How do I go back out there and say, I'm gonna try this again? Because I'm just like Brownstone. I did it the first time. I took the pep talk, grabbed me some people. Well, now I know I gotta get a website because you guys are checking the website just to make sure I'm really valid. Well, you check the website. You know about these problems. And you say, well, we're going to help them. Look like that kind of consideration should move down to the SIP. It's less risk and more productive. I'm disappointed, Superintendent. And I can't have consideration. It hurts me. You know how long I've worked in this community. And not to gain your support, that hurts. So what do I gotta do to build capacity with you? Because they know me, they call me. My kids, I got so many kids, white, black, blue, brown, and Japanese. But I'm gonna continue into this system. But that's not fair to me, Ms. Glenn, and I think in your heart you see that. The bigger you are up on the scale, the more allowances you get. Smaller you are, the more constricted and constructed we are. Other words could be used for that is oppression.
Thank you for your comment.
I'm going to join the Rattler strike. It's right down at the moon. I'll be the one with the star.
Thank you so very much. Ms. Clay, do we have any other comments?
There's no additional public comment.
No other public comments. All right, it's time for us to move to a vote. So the motion on the table is to accept the recommendation to move forward with the current contract that has been brought forward by the negotiations team. Ms. Green, I'm sorry, Ms. Clay.
Judge Miller?
All right, after taking everything into consideration, although I've had some concerns, I will support the motion.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? Mr. Hannah?
No.
Commissioner Cummings,
No.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Watts,
Yes.
Dr. Glenn.
Yes. Okay, so the motion has passed. All right, so we will move forward with funding the Family Resource Center.
So we will put in an intent to award
Thank you.
and then go into our final, contract negotiations. That contract will be brought back before you to review, provide comments, all of that. Then we'll have it where we bring it before you guys to approve.
Please, thank you very much. And then once again, I just want to emphasize that the strict monitoring during the 9 months period, that's important to me. So, all right, thank you very much. Guys, we are moving, Mr. Hannah, please.
Quickly, I will offer, talk about an alternative site rather than here. If we have some property that potentially would serve the purpose of housing this resource center, potentially at the Bloxham Building downtown or the Weston Building on the south side of our community, I would propose that as opposed to here. Okay?
Absolutely.
If you want to talk about it, just let me know.
We want to talk about it, so thank you very much. All right, we will follow up with you. Thank you. All right, moving forward, let's move on to agenda item number 9, the summer internship program in partnership with the World of Works. Ms. Brink.
Summer internship program. So, council, the reason why this is not a procurement is because this is a program that we are developing. It is not a program that we have been seeking someone else to do for us. And it is a part of the summer funding that you all approved, the $1.7 million. You already approved program funding, and that application is moving forward. Those entities are applying. This is in response to our youth and things that our youth have asked for, and in concert with the direction of Worlds of Work. So with that, I am going to pass it to our procurement manager, Holly McPhail, who will give you a quick overview of this proposal.
Thank you, council members. For the summer internship program, there are 2 existing programs that are already in play. One is funded by the county, where it takes high school youth and it places them within county departments and gives them a real life work experience. The other is with the city. It's called the Tallahassee Future Leaders Academy, and it does very similar things, but it gives them the experience again at a city department. Both of those programs have been at capacity and have considered expanding should they have additional funds, but both of them have expressed in staff level conversations the ability to host more and more in different departments that they're going to tap out at some point. We have private companies and owners who would be willing to expand that experience by offering internships at local businesses to kind of widen the net, if you will, for that. The Tallahassee Future Leaders Academy has experimented a little bit with that space. Again, TFLA is at the city of Tallahassee, where they develop partnerships with the university systems as well as one credit union, where they kind of tested out the waters of having interns not in a local government capacity. So this is a direct kind of expansion to that, where we would be partnering with local businesses. We have approached all 3 chambers, the Greater Chamber of Tallahassee, Big Bend Minority Chamber, and the Capital City Chamber, of being able to recruit and have businesses engaged in that. Seeing the success of Worlds of Work and being able to build on that, and kind of talking with those community businesses of being able to host that is something that they're willing to do and interested in doing. So this is one of those innovative approaches to building workforce skills and work ready skills to help our youth be prepared for whatever comes after graduation. To that end, the Worlds of Work has been supported by the Tallahassee-Leon County Talent Development Council, to which Ms. Corey Melton is still here should there be additional questions to ask about what is being designed. But the quick version, and we've seen this innovatively being done in other communities in other states as an extension to their Worlds of Work, is starting small, a capacity of around 60 students that have completed at least 9th grade, would then receive a job internship, but it's youth employment for a period of 16 training hours and then 8 weeks of 20 hours a week. For each of the businesses that successfully host one of these students, there would be a business incentive there would be a cash incentive to that business. That means that they're providing that supervision, they're working with them and making sure that they have a well-rounded experience. You'll see in here another partnership that we want to leverage, and that is Aspire, which has a whole host of community partners. And I could list all of their names, but I'll if you'd like that list, I'll provide it to you. But in essence, leaning on Aspire and their local college access network to leverage their experience to provide training, that pre-service training before these go into their work sites, and then also bringing on an internship coordinator who would be doing a bi-weekly check-in with each of the interns at the job site. That entails checking in on the student as well as the host. Pulling all of that together, and then at the very end of the program, having a completion ceremony to which all of the members of council would certainly be invited to hear about the experience. But then as we're able to tell their story of what the work experience meant for them. Altogether, this is an innovative kind of practice that we are developing. It's about $250,000, and on page 3 of the proposal, which is page something else in your packet, page number 50. You'll see that the budget is $250,000 for those 60 youth, and that this is already part of the previous allocation for summer youth that you did previously approved. This is not on top of that. This is encumbered within that amount. But you'll see in there the full budget of how things would be used, including the business coordination, workshop support, the internship coordinator, business and then also a company to administer and do all of the payroll, recognizing our team is awfully small, and we certainly don't want to be growing by 60 youth. And I'm here to answer any questions myself or Director.
The last thing I would add before we turn it back over to you, Madam Chair, is that if you recall, in summer of 2022, one of the summer funding programs that you approved was Talent Hub, the expansion of Talent Hub. So this is a direct reflection of that, and in that Talent Hub will be used for this program and for these youth. So I wanted to bring that to our attention because it is a shining example of how a past investment comes back and gives you a return on investment. So with that, I'll turn it back.
Thank you very much.
May I just, because you mentioned that, and I think it goes without saying, the leadership of Leon County Schools is actually leveraging Talent Hub, and all 9th graders have dedicated time where they're going on to that portal, and they're doing career exploration and ideation, and our businesses are leveraging it, so it'll actually be in that same vein in terms of where they advertise. And I wanted to mention that eyeballs of our students are already in this hub, and that's why we want to leverage that platform for advertising and recruiting. Thank you.
All right, I will accept a motion and a second regarding the funding proposal.
Madam Chair, I move acceptance of the proposals, summer internship and Aspire.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Judge Miller. Thank you so much. All right, we can now move to discussions. Is your card up, Mr.?
It is.
Okay.
I have one question, is how are we targeting student candidates in this program?
So for targeting them, a lot of the same recruitment tools that the city and county have developed to bring them in is something that we would want to do, and making sure that if it works out great, it would be kind of a one-stop shop where anyone could apply for a CSC internship, a city or a county, so that we're not competing against one another. And then we do take it specifically to the high schools in which that are located in our targeted zips. I will say that
You can separate that. So I just want to qualify. These are student candidates in targeted zip codes, right?
Yes.
It's not across the board. Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's my question.
There have been applicants to the city program that do not live within the city. And they had asked, could they refer them to us? And so we can make the caveat if they live in those targeted zips, that they are not within the city confines, and the answer could be yes. And that's definitely a direction that we could stipulate that.
Answer my question, that's why I needed to hear.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion items?
I'd just like to add, Madam Chair, that I attended at World of Works this year. Our executive director was there, staff. I mean, it was awesome. It was just very awesome. They bussed in the students from the high school, just great exposure. They had displays. It's all over it was at TCC, right? Displays in the courtyard and lively. Oh, the superintendent was there, yeah. But it was great. It was really great.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And deliver a baby.
Any other discussion items?
I just got somebody.
It was a simulation.
Oh.
Yeah.
Didn't hear that. Okay, so
Dr. Hannah.
any other comments? If not, we can move on to public comment.
There's no public comment.
Public comment. All right, so with that, the motion on the table is for us to move forward with the summer internship program. Ms. Clay, will you please do a roll call vote for me?
Judge Miller,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Hannah,
No.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Dr. Glenn.
Yes. All right, the motion passes. So we will move forward with the summer internship program that's sponsored or in partnership with World of Work. So thank you all so very much for that. Okay, there's been a gentleman that's been sitting here for like 2.5 hours waiting to talk to us today. So we will have a special presentation. I'm going to turn that over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
1 second.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna explain why I voted no. And it goes back to what I said 2 years ago about us funding all of these different programs and I love what happened with the World of Works. I think it's great about this initiative. $250,000 divided by 60 kids, about $4,100 per student. I just again wanted to focus on 1 or 2 things and not get spread so thin that we just start handing out 15,000, 20,000, 200,000. And tonight between, and I have reservations, obviously, I voted against Children's Services Council. Children's Home Society. They do great work. I find it strange they came here before begging or asking for emergency money. And now we've come back and I have the utmost respect for Mr. Mitchell. We'll see what happens. But tonight we've now given out $1 million, which I don't know what percent of 9 million, $1 million is, but it's a substantial amount. But it's nothing against any of these organizations. I just continue to struggle with us going back to where I want to be. I've made it very clear, but to Corey and others, it's not personal. I think they do wonderful work. I just fear that if we just start trying to do things so broad and don't go deep, then you're just not going to have any impact.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, and I know that this is sort of relevant to what the next discussion, I believe, is. I paused because I heard Mr. Hannah now vote no a couple times, and I know this is a good program, and I know this was not against them. But I share your concern, Superintendent. I do, and I'm glad we've taken the steps we've taken tonight. But I hope that we heed the warning of our superintendent. There's a reason he is statutorily appointed to this board. And I think we're very fortunate to have him as our superintendent. And I do want to heed his warnings. Mr. Jones spoke of mission creep. He was talking about the people applying for the money. I didn't hear that. I mean, when he said it, I was like, yeah, we're sort of guilty of it. I want to make sure that we stay focused. And I'm glad I voted yes, but I understand why you voted no, Mr. Superintendent, and I respect it.
Thank you both for your comments.
which means I don't want to get into funding other things. That's why I said it was relevant to the next presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's move forward. Special presentation.
Yes, so we have with us Assistant County Administrator, Mr. Shankton Lammy, who will come and give us an overview of the November 28th Leon County Government Human Services Workshop.
Well,
Welcome.
thank you. I don't know if I should say good afternoon or good evening.
Good evening now. Good evening.
Good night.
It'll be good morning. It'll be good morning.
Yeah, well, I'll just say good afternoon, good evening, good night, Madam Chair, council members. Thank you for having me here today. So, you know, since the creation, the last time I was for the council a couple years ago, you know, Sika was not in a position that there was a couple of different faces, but I see still some consistent faces. But since that time, I mean, there's been so many opportunities in which the county with the Children's Service Council and Sika, where we found opportunities where we've been able to work together. Holding the Breaking Bread events where we're in 10 neighborhoods that are facing poverty in our community and talking about how do we address poverty, how do we address food insecurity in those neighborhoods. To just this year, holding the Summer Youth Expo right here in this facility, really showcasing some of the programs that you are funding so that way that families knew where they can send their kids during this past summer. And so I think the future is bright for other opportunities in which we can continue to work together and partner. And so that's part of the things I want to talk about, because that was part of the conversation that was discussed this last month when the Board of County Commissioners held a workshop on human services in CHSP. So I know it's getting late, so I'm not going to go into just the details of that workshop, only to say that that I wanted to touch on some of the recommendations that were brought before the board, the actions that were taken. And one thing I'll say about the actions that were taken and that we brought before the board is that those actions all said that we'll do further analysis to the county commission as well, or we're going to further explore the ideas that we brought for recommendation. And that's what the board wanted, and that's what we do, because at the end of the day, a lot of this requires a whole lot more conversation, a whole lot more input from the community, like our partners, like Children's Service Council, like the city, like our human service partners that are delivering the services day in, day out in our community. But that being said, what we talked about primarily is, so many of you may know that the Community Human Services Partnerships, or CHSP, that's the primary way in which we fund human services jointly in partnership with the city of Tallahassee. Been doing this since 1997. It's a program that has evolved over the years and continues to evolve because we have to evolve and able to address the human service needs in our community. And the thing regarding CHSP, of course, we've had several categories. Right now, we're up to 11 categories that funds things from children's services, ironically called, as well as senior services and disability and healthcare. So it really tries to hit all the different parts of human services here in our community. What we brought to our board was recommendations to continue to help best position CHSP to continue to address the human service needs in our community, recognizing a few things, right? One is a combination that we do have partners that exist in our community, considerable investments to address needs in our community, such as Services Council and other partners here in our community, as well as the fact that, you know, over the past 3 years now, that in our community, at least for our board, as well even on the city side, we've had so much conversations in the area of homelessness and housing. In fact, we've had 4 workshops, a couple of them jointly with the city about homelessness. We've had another 2 to 3 workshops about housing. We constantly get calls about issues about homelessness and unsheltered homelessness in our community. And so we wanted to best position CHSP to do that. And so one of the things we did was we did bring a recommendation to actually realign the categories that currently exist for CHSP. So that way we can, again, best position ourselves to address what we believe are some of the highest needs that are going in the area of homelessness and emergency housing needs. One thing I want to say that what we don't intend to do is stop funding children, youth, and family stuff. Because at the end of the day, when we look at homelessness, because one of the recommendations under the CHSP was actually establish line item funding for emergency shelters. Well, we have 5 emergency shelters. 4 of those emergency shelters address children, youth, and families. So that's clearly a space we're not leaving. There's a category that's being created for gun violence intervention that is going to focus on addressing the issues of gun violence in specific neighborhoods that really target a lot of our young youth. That's not stopping. We've got our disability services category that provides funding to several programs that's specifically focused on youth with disabilities. Again, not ending. Same thing with healthcare. I think what we're trying to do is really in working with partners in the community, identifying those areas that partners like the Children's Service Council has said, these are our priority areas. Here's where we intend to provide a significant or considerable level of funding, and then determining how do we realign CHSP and what recognition that is occurring. So that's one of the recommendations that we're looking at. And what our board has requested us to do, as Chairman Cummings mentioned, is that they want to know what that impact will mean for the agencies. And so that's something that we are doing. We're working with them by meeting with our agencies to get further input from them about what those potential impacts will look like potentially, as well as we are also working with the Children's Services Council, looking at what grant opportunities that may exist at the state or federal level and other opportunities that exist that may be an opportunity that the agency could potentially apply for without doing harm to programs that we have funded for years. So that's something that we are taking into consideration, and we're meeting with them again a few times. And one thing I'll have to say, and Sika has been part of those conversations with us the entire time. One thing we've been very clear with, and she has been very clear with, is that the intent of anything that we bring to the board is not to say that, no, the Children's Services Council's got it. That has never been the thing, because at the end of the day, one thing we want to continue to let people know is CHSP is a competitive process. You still have to apply. If you didn't, then we would just say, oh, you get this funding every single year. It's still a competitive process, as well as we understand the Children's Services Council has a competitive process. So the idea is that not to say that funding go here because you're going to be guaranteed funding. Nowhere should there be guaranteed funding when we're trying to figure out how do we measure and determine how our programs are performing to address the needs here in our community. So that's where we are with that specific recommendation. So I did want to hit on that a little bit. But then there's also other recommendations that we made that also talked about looking at how we can strengthen our partnership with 211 Big Bend. As you all know, 211 Big Bend, important provider here in our community, recognized by the state, funded by the state, to actually be able to help people in accessing resources here in our community. One thing I think we have clearly recognized, and I think even right now, the Children's Services Council has recognized, is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. 211 is 24 hours, 7 days a week, where people can call and figure out what resources are available. The question is, how do we elevate them so that way they can help our community? Because one of the things we heard when we had the Breaking Bread events, when we look at different needs assessment that has been done here in our community, is that people constantly want to know, well, where can I access these resources? You know, how do I know they're available? We tell them, contact one, right? And so it's important for us to figure out how do we continue to promote that in our community and make sure that they have the capacity to be able to provide that and connect folks to those resources. And so we looked at, particularly with the county city, looking at how we elevate them beyond CHSP, because right now they're a CHSP funded agency, and looking to see actually fund them and contract with them at a higher level, almost like sole source, like you guys do here with some of your programs. The other thing, of course, is looking at how do we enhance transportation. There's a program that you guys funded, I think last year or earlier this year with the 211 Lyft program. That's something that we're looking to actually work No, okay, I'm sorry, my bad, my bad. Yes, ma'am. But, we're looking as an opportunity to work with CSC to see how do we fund that, because in working right now with, the children, the Children's Healthy Start Coalition. So Capital Area Healthy Start Coalition. Earlier this year, our board held a board retreat where we talked about maternal and infant health and how do we address those needs. And they directed us to continue and partner with the Capital Area Healthy Start to figure out what some of the issues are when we're dealing with infant mortality in our community, especially in the Black and Brown community. And in those conversations, we participated in all of the calls, all the committee meetings that the Healthy Start has, and we constantly hear the issue of transportation. Transportation, especially after mom has had that baby. There's a lot of postpartum issues. There's issues about support. And now I gotta take this baby to this first appointment and carry this, and I need to get a ride. And so there's been issues about how do we address that? And so one of those ideas is looking at the programs that 211 has in place with Lyft, where someone can call 211 and they can get a ride, on-demand ride, just like Lyft, like you do on your phone, to those appointments. I think it's critical as we try to address those and figure out how do we make sure people get access to those type of resources, and seeing how we can do that in partnership with the Children's Services Council. Okay, and the other thing is the community information exchange. Is another opportunity with 211. It's infrastructure that I believe that other communities are currently looking at, where you're working to help organizations here on our community share information. So that way communities that put this in place, it helps with access to the clients, because now agency A and agency B are able to share data that is critical to delivering services to the clients that they're both working with. And then what you're doing also is that you don't have a situation where that client has to relive that trauma, because every time you got to go to an agency and explain why your power's off, why your kids ain't eating, that's reliving the trauma. So other opportunity in which we can work together, and we brought before the board, but all of these will come back before the county commission once we've gotten opportunity to fully vet some of these ideas, and also continue to work with the Children's Service Council, the city, and our human service partners, and looking at potential recommendations to bring back before our board. So, that I'm happy to answer any questions.
We are open for conversation, discussion. Please.
Let me clarify for the record, because we were like, no, we didn't do that. Yes, in 22, 211 was one of our funded summer entities, and vouchers for Lyft rides was included in that.
That's what I thought. So
Yes.
so I was half right.
We didn't fund Lyft.
Yeah.
We didn't fund Lyft, but we did fund some vouchers
Okay.
through that. So I wanted to clarify that. All right.
We're not voting on anything today, but it is open for discussion and
Yes.
questions. Mr. Mitchell, please.
So, Shikton, I appreciate you coming. It's, I'll say this. I heard what you said about, it seems like you're collapsing the number of categories into fewer, or that's a possibility. And then in doing that, you'll still be funding certain programs. It sounds like when you say you're funding certain programs, there are certain programs that you're currently funding that you're likely not to fund because you have to make a different priority decision. A-OK, there's 7 county commissioners and 5 city commissioners. You guys all get to, or they all get to, to make that decision. Children's Services Council, I was established not to make up for any lapse in funding by the county or the city. We are, to me, agnostic of what goes on outside of with the county and the city. I would be, as a member of both, a voting member of both, I would be disappointed if the county, and I've listened to the workshop. The newest county commissioner, who talked about the lottery, kind of debate and switch, where the voters established the Children's Services Council, generously giving about 8 million of their dollars. And then whoop, we'll take 8 million out of, you know, a different fund. And I'm not suggesting that anybody said it was 8 million, but nonetheless, I just want to make myself very clear that I you know, what Commissioner Cummings does as chairwoman of the county commission, and what the mayor and the city commission does, that's fine. I appreciate the fact that you're here, because I got a call from one of the county commissioners who assumed I knew what was like. You need to stop. I have no idea what you're talking about. This has never come before this board. We've never made any decisions as to what we would fund or not fund, and we can't. So thank you. I just had to get that on the record, because again, everybody in this community has difficult decisions to make, and I appreciate that. And I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just saying that as the Children's Services Council, we sort of have to put blinders on as to what's going on in other governmental entities. And if you guys make a decision, do not fund certain children and family services. That's your decision to make, and the city's decision to make, and then the council can react accordingly.
Any other comments or questions for Mr.?
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to thank Mr. Lennon for coming today, explaining what's going on with the CHSBC, you know, process. And I recognize that he's a spokesperson, but it's a governmental entity that he's representing. So we appreciate you coming to catch all the fiery darts.
And waiting.
And I'm waiting 3 hours. I'm waiting. That was actually more pain.
And I'll say that I know this conversation will continue. Let me just say that you guys have an awesome executive director who is worked very closely with me, who always lets me know about what you guys are doing. We talk we have coffee. You know, most of the time I have water right now, because I can have coffee. Every couple of weeks or so that way we can talk about what's going on with the county, what's going on with Children's Services Council, what's going on with the city, because you're right, Mr. Mitchell. At the end of the day, the councils, the commissions will have to make their own decisions. But I think it would be wrong of us as your staff to not always know what the other partners are doing, and ensuring that you're aware of what's going on. So that way that can also look, so you have all the information you need in making the best decision here in the community. Because one thing one thing we want everyone to do is duplicate or redundant a lot of things that we both may be doing. When there's opportunities we can talk about and say, hey, see, we're doing this right here. I mean, we had a conversation about affordable housing, right? I was like, see, we got it. You guys don't have to play in that space. I'll tell you about all the ways that we're doing it, and the city's doing it, and the dedicated funding source that we have to address that issue. And so that's important. So when those conversations come up, that you guys are aware, and she's aware of those information too. I mean, that's a conversation we have. But thank you again. I will just say a personal privilege to say that I believe that Chair Cummings is the best member on the council.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time to present us today. All right, let's move forward to agenda item number 11, the committee updates. So let's start with the bylaws committee. Ms. Green, would you please give an update as to what we did?
The bylaws committee met and made several revisions to the bylaws in line with the conversation that we had at our last council meeting. I will actually turn it over to General Counsel Rowe, who went through, redlined, made sure we were not going to be in a place where we were out of congruence with the statute. probably the biggest changes before I give it to you is that we will move to 2 meetings per quarter. So we'll meet the first month of the quarter. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Move to 2 meetings per quarter, the first month of the quarter and the last month of the quarter, and then we collapse some committees. So with that, I'll give it to General Counsel Rowe.
Thank you, Sika. And I know the council members have in their packet the resolution which would adopt the amended and restated bylaws. I don't see it in the materials here before. 51. But there should have been provided to council members a red line that shows the changes, the exact changes were made. I don't have that here before me.
What, so let me, so if I don't look at the, if I don't save it correctly as a PDF, it makes all the red line changes, and I think that's what I did when I included this. So it is my apologies, and I can send that out.
I might have a copy here. It would help me summarize quickly the changes.
So the red line you sent me an email.
That's it.
Yeah,
You got it. Okay.
We did.
Okay.
do you want to see it? I mean, I'll give it to you on my cell phone.
I've got it tonight.
Oh, okay.
Holly.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. Check that email.
You were in the character. What do I do? Huh? Like, I don't even.
Oh, wow.
I think I
They
have
have just sent it.
it. Down. Yeah, the 14th.
Got it.
Yep, that
I'll
was.
send it to you.
All right, I have it.
We're gonna put it on the screen.
So various changes were made to sort of clean up some of the language and to ensure consistency of use of terms throughout the bylaws. As Sika mentioned, probably one of the more significant changes is to reduce to having council meetings from requirement to be held monthly to at least quarterly. There's provision that says that while the meetings would be held at least quarterly, that is in the event there is no emergency circumstance, which would, or extraordinary circumstance would prevent the council from meeting, in which case that hard limit of at least once per quarter can be deviated from. There was some additional language added regarding the quorum. Quorum shall be established at each meeting. The presence of a majority of members then serving on the council shall constitute a quorum. There's been discussion and asks previously as to whether or not council members can attend meetings remotely through virtual means or Zoom or whatnot. We clarified the bylaws to make consistent provision with the Sunshine Law, which says that if a quorum is physically present, quorum of the board members physically present, that quorum can determine whether or not to allow one or more members to participate remotely. And that's usually only a decision that's granted in extraordinary circumstances, not for a matter of convenience. If someone is ill or recovering from COVID, that would constitute grounds by which the board could make a determination it's reasonable to let them participate remotely. There was a provision that said the DCF appointment, Councilmember Watts, shall not vote on the hiring and dismissal of an executive director. We could find no support in state law for that requirement, so we eliminated it from. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Just had to put it up on the screen. So we eliminated that from the bylaws. Scroll down, Molly. And then just further clarify the state law requirement regarding the judge's abstention from the setting of the military each year. I think that was it.
That was it. And that we just did, what do you call them, mechanical changes to make sure we were formatted correctly and make it more consistent.
I'll move the changes.
All right.
I'll move the changes.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to accept the resolution, and we have a second by Mr. Mitchell. So thank you very much for that. We are now open for any discussion items. Any discussion? No, all right. So now let's move to public comment. Ms. Clay, do we have any public comment?
There's no public comment.
We have no public comment. All right, so now we are ready to vote on the resolution for the changes for to the bylaws. Ms. Clay. Hannah, we are voting on the changes to the bylaws.
I missed my name.
That's all right.
Judge Miller,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Hannah,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Dr. Glenn.
Yes, all right, the motion is passed. We have now adopted the new resolution for the new bylaws. Thank you very much, Mr. Rowe. We appreciate that. All right, guys, we're almost done. Now for an update on the executive committee. So thank you to all of you that have completed the evaluation for our executive director. Mr. Rowe, I'm going to ask you if you would just please give a brief summary of where we are with the evaluation process.
Certainly, the executive director's current employment agreement provides for a 2-year term. So that 2-year term will conclude 1 year from now. The agreement also provides that although it's a 2-year term, she receives annual evaluations on her performance from the performance evaluation has to be based on the job description that she was hired for to ensure consistency as far as whether or not she's meeting what she was hired to do. Using an instrument that Sika herself, as the executive director, had reviewed and sort of approved. The instrument that was used this year is the same instrument that was used last year. It was provided to each council member. Each returned it back to me. I have tabulated the scores given by each. They are in your packet. These scores were shared with and discussed by the executive committee at its last meeting and determined to bring them forth for full consideration by the council.
Yeah, thank you very much. So when the executive committee, I do see, and I'll come to you 1 second. When the executive committee did meet, we did make the recommendation that we retain Ms. Green in her current position and that we move forward with keeping her contract in place for another year. We did also, it did also allow for consideration for a salary increase, but we decided to keep her at her current salary and not make any changes at that point. So I just wanted to be very clear as to where we were, where we landed with the recommendations. So that's the recommendation that's on the floor. I would like to get a motion in a second, and then I will allow for discussion. So
I'll move the recommendations,
Okay.
executive committee.
So we have a motion. Who was the second? All right, we have a second from Mr. Watts. All right, thank you very much. And so now we are now open for discussion. Any discussion items? No? All right. So we have a motion. We have a second. It is now time for us. Oh, public comment.
There's no public comment.
Public comment. All right. So it's now time for us to vote to approve this motion to retain Ms. Green with her current position and accept her evaluation. So please. You do, okay, we have a comment.
There was a scrivener's error in my voting, not my voting, but my evaluations. But there was should have been a 5 under community relations, there was 4 there.
Okay,
Yeah, so.
so we're gonna make a correction, all right, so Mr. Rowe, if you would please make that correction too. Thank you for bringing that forward, Judge Miller, we appreciate that. All right, the motion is still on the table. I would like for us to go ahead and vote on it, please. Ms.
Judge Miller,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Hannah,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Dr. Glenn.
Yes, all right, the motion has passed. Ms. Green, we get to harass you for at least another year. All right, so thank you very much. We are going to move forward with retaining Ms. Green. All right, everybody, agenda item number 12, the next meeting agenda. So our next meeting is currently scheduled for Thursday, January the 18th, same place, same station, right here. At that point, we will have a strategic planning focused discussion. Any other items, please?
There's going to be, in that discussion, we will have a review of evaluation processes that we've been doing so far. And if you remember, this first meeting of the quarter is going to serve as your workshop. And that is a chance for you to have those discussions that you want to have. Let me further say that we did get a chance to follow up with the strategic planning meeting with both Chair Cummings and Council Member O'Brien, we were able to do those separately, so they got some individual attention. And they were able to chime in on the step 1 and step 2 of our process. So step 3 is where we're deciding on the percentages, to your point, Councilmember Hannah, the percentage of the funding and how that will look for your number 1 priority. And if at all, you're dealing with your secondary and your tertiary. So we're going to have those conversations. If in that process, as you're thinking through that, we may be sending you some information. I know it's the holidays, but we may be sending you some information to review prior to that discussion. And if there are any persons other than the ones that we will have present to be a part of that discussion, that you would like to have present, please let us know. And if we haven't already covered it, we will have them here. You are to, I'm issuing a directive. You are to walk away from that January meeting with a clear focus and direction for staff regarding your focus area and how that budget will impact that. Then we will come back with a plan that is in line with that, including procurements for this year. Makes sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I'm looking forward to the January.
Oh, me too. I am too.
The more conversations we have, I think the better. I'll understand what we're doing. We can focus on our areas and everybody's on the same page.
Last thing, I'm sorry. You will get an update on the ELC on-ramp. I think that's going to be important because it feeds into what we believe the conversation is going to be. And we may even have, we said April for rebound and recovery, but we may move that to January only because that information may be pertinent as we're looking at that focus. And now I'm done.
You're done. Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. So that's what we have to look forward to.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to make sure, I met with Dina and Mr. Grayson, our CPA. We are going to bring to the council a better way for you to understand what money is, for example, the $4 million, what is actually budgeted in this current year, what's budgeted next year, as we're making decisions, whatever the decision, the policy decisions are, the funding follows that, but it also drives it. And I always feel like I have this advantage of sort of knowing all the dollars, and I appreciate the fact that you guys trust me, but you're about to make a big policy decision or the series of them, and you just need to know how much you really have to spend. And it's actually more than what you probably are anticipating. And one final thing, and this is gets to that point, it was suggested that we were rolling back the rates of millage and we would actually generate less than we did last year. Just so you know, based on the most significant months of the year, at end of October, really November and December, we will end up raising probably around $600,000 more this year than we did last year. So it's important that facts speak, and they speak loudly. And what we voted on was to try to limit impact of property taxes, but we will still generate about $600,000 more.
Will the financial report be a part of the January meeting? Are y'all gonna be prepared for that?
Yes, we are prepared. And you're gonna see it in, I hope, good numbers. Yes, very living color.
Thank you. All right, I look forward to seeing that. Thank you very much. Judge Miller.
Have the dates for our meetings next year been recorded? And I was trying to put those on the calendar.
So they have not, now that you all have passed, now you all will get them.
So they're coming.
Wait to the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Sounds
Bylaws
good.
change.
Thank you.
Number of.
All right.
We'll start the quarterly beginning in January,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
quarterly after that.
Yes. Now, keep in mind, the March meeting is March 7th. Because we needed to move that meeting so we could meet with the summer, we need to bring summer. Y'all, it's time for a break. Okay, bring that summer funding so you guys can make
So
that.
they'll all be at 4.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, now it's time for member comments. I could hold y'all in 15 seconds, because I know everybody's gonna probably want to say something. But we're now open for 15-second member comments. We'll start with you, Judge Miller.
Well, I just want to say as a proud fan of you alum, I'm so excited to open the game and it was pretty crowded. But it was a great celebration. So you know, cheers to the family rappers.
Strike, get struck in.
Black National Championship.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that comment, Judge Miller. Any other comments? Mr. O'Brien?
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Ms. Mitchell, your card up, or you just haven't gone down yet? Okay, from the number this one. All right, Ms. Cummings.
Yeah, I just did Judge Miller.
Okay.
And congratulating all our championship teams, FSU,
Your colors?
football, FAMU, football, FSU, soccer.
That's right, that's right. Awesome.
Again, that's great for time. Yeah, we just feel really good about
Everybody.
all of our student athletes.
Absolutely.
And Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Thank
Miss, I agree.
Last thing, first of all, thank you all for the evaluation. I always read the feedback and want to ensure that I am meeting your expectation. Number one. Number two, of course, I looked at the executive meeting, even though I wasn't there. And Jacinta is going to be working with you and your staff to set up at least once quarterly meetings with everyone. To try to do it every month is probably going to be hard. And while I know y'all love me, you probably can't see me every month. Of course, our officers, we talk to more frequently, but at least every quarter, I'd like to try and meet with each of the council members. And so just thank you. I love this work. I'm glad to be continuing this work. And happy holidays and all that good stuff. And all that fall to roll.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
All right, the time is now 7:22. Our meeting is now adjourned. Thank you. Yeah, I know, right?
I think it's not, they put on.